Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Ethan's pulse hammered as he read the message lighting up Lauren's phone screen. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Gavin?" His fingers tightened around the cold glass of bourbon. His wife had been lying to his face. The perfume he didn't recognize. The late nights. The distant smiles. Now the proof was staring back at him. As he set the phone down exactly where he found it, Ethan exhaled slowly. He wasn't a man to make reckless moves. No, if Lauren wanted to betray him, she'd soon realize who she underestimated, and she would regret it. Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Ethan Granger tilted his head back against the executive leather seat of his sleek Mercedes, focusing on the warm hum of the engine. It was almost 7 p.m. in Seattle, that dusky hour where city lights began to glitter against the darkening sky. He typically drove home well past 9, so arriving now felt strange, like wearing someone else's shoes. Yet something had compelled him to cut the meeting short, a gnawing sensation in the pit of his stomach telling him it was time to see what his wife was really up to. He had sensed changes in Lauren for weeks, but he'd let them wash over him, hoping each wave of distance was just her routine stress. She was 38, an adjunct art instructor at a local college, passionately engaged in her students' success at least. That was the official story. For a while, he found it charming how she'd come alive whenever she talked about painting or sculpture. But recently, her newfound spirit didn't seem tied to the classroom. She was humming unfamiliar tunes, wearing a new perfume Ethan hadn't bought her, and rummaging through her phone the moment she woke up. It was suspicious, and for a man who ran a successful software empire called SkyEdge Innovations, suspicious details never went unexamined. As he neared the modern glass and steel townhouse he'd purchased for them 3 years ago, his success rising with each new product launch, he noticed only Lauren's sedan out front. No unusual cars parked along the curb, no immediate sign of wrongdoing. Yet that feeling persisted, that quiet churn in his gut. Something was off. He parked, took a breath, and reminded himself, don't jump to conclusions. If it turned out to be nothing, he'd look foolish for all the worry. But if it turned out to be something, Ethan clenched his jaw. Then the worried curiosity gave way to a mild anger. If Lauren was lying, if she was hiding something from him of all people, that was a violation he would not let slide. Inside, the house was mostly dark. Just a faint table lamp glowed near the living room couch, giving the open floor plan an eerie hush. He set down his briefcase and called her name. Lauren? No answer. A quick glance at the hallway confirmed the bedroom light was off. The kitchen looked untouched since morning. Odd, since Lauren usually had a glass of wine going by this hour. Ethan's eyes flicked to the countertop. Her phone lay face down, the screen lighting up with a new notification. He never pried into her phone or diaries, but the corner of the device glowed insistently, each pulse stirring his curiosity. He took a slow step forward, heart thumping, moral lines blurring. The phone buzzed, vibrated, then fell silent. Another text. He was about to pick it up when his gaze landed on something else, a disarray of paintbrushes on the console table. That was unusual because she typically kept her art supplies in her studio upstairs. One brush had a streak of bright crimson paint, something she rarely used in her typical landscapes. Ethan frowned, crossing the living room to the open door leading to her small art space. Maybe she was in there. Maybe. As he moved closer, he glimpsed the beginnings of a painting on an easel. It was a partial figure with broad shoulders, a distinctive, somewhat messy hairstyle, definitely not Ethan's. Lauren's style was usually more abstract, but this silhouette felt intimate, personal. He swallowed hard. His mind flickered with the possibility that she was drawing from a real-life model, someone she'd grown fond of. He shook the thought away, trying to be rational. He had no proof. Not yet. One more buzz from the phone. Ethan inhaled, hearing the device vibrate across the stone countertop. This time he couldn't help it. He stepped over, turned it upright, and saw the name on the lock screen. Gavin. He recognized no last name, just a G on the icon with a subtle heart next to it. The message preview read, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you." Ethan's stomach twisted, every calm fiber in his body prepared to snap. He read it again, making sure he wasn't hallucinating. Last night was incredible. The possible implications roared through his mind. He pressed the phone's side button, letting the screen go dark. He refused to open the phone or snoop too deeply. Maybe he was old-fashioned, but he wanted more substantial evidence. However, that single text was enough to light up his suspicions like a neon sign in the dark. Who the hell is Gavin? And what exactly was so incredible last night? For a moment he just stood there, forcibly restraining his own anger. Then a small noise from outside footsteps, or perhaps a neighbor. It jolted him into action. He placed the phone back exactly as he found it, wiped any smudge he might have left, and calmly moved to the staircase. If Lauren was upstairs in her studio, he would greet her. Maybe that was the normal approach. But he also noticed from the corner of his eye that her bag and keys were missing. The house felt empty, except for him. Ethan was about to call Lauren again when the front door suddenly opened. In walked Bailey Granger, his 20-year-old sister, who had texted him earlier about working late at the Sky Edge campus. She paused at the doorway, clearly startled to see him home so soon. Bailey asked quietly. She had the same dark hair as Ethan, but in a short, modern cut that framed her face. "What's going on? I thought you had a late meeting." He forced a neutral expression. "Meeting ended early. I wanted to surprise Lauren, but she's not here." He gestured to the near-empty house. Bailey set her purse on the small bench. "That's weird. It's nearly 7. Any idea where she went?" Ethan swallowed, glancing at the phone on the counter. He didn't want to drag Bailey into a potential storm of infidelity, not yet. "No clue," he said evenly. "She didn't mention plans. Maybe she's out for groceries or with a friend." Bailey observed him a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. She was no fool and sensed the tension in the air. "You sure everything's all right?" She spoke gently, as if approaching a wounded animal. He nodded firmly, crossing his arms. "I'm okay. Just stressed from work. That's all." That quiet shift in her expression told him she didn't buy it, but she let it drop. "All right. Well, I'll be upstairs if you need me. I have some data sets to analyze for the new app launch." As Bailey walked away, Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He hated lying by omission, but until he had more facts, he wouldn't alarm his younger sister. She'd always looked up to him, and Lauren had been something of a role model for Bailey, too. If all this was a real affair, it wouldn't just break Ethan's heart, it'd break Bailey's illusions as well. An hour later, Ethan heard the front door open again. He hovered near the living room, pretending to be flipping through a trade magazine. Lauren slipped in, her hair slightly tousled, a faint flush on her cheeks. She wore a navy blouse he'd never seen before, and smelled of that unfamiliar perfume once more. The moment she noticed him, her eyes flickered with a brief panic, then she forced a casual smile. "Ethan? You're home early. Everything okay?" He set down the magazine, controlling the tension in his face. "Meeting ended sooner than expected. Where have you been?" She paused, unbuttoning her lightweight jacket, careful and deliberate. "I told you. I had an after-class session with some students. We're prepping for an upcoming art show, lots of last-minute details. Sorry I didn't text." Her explanation was unconvincing. She rattled it off too quickly, like a well-rehearsed alibi. Ethan felt the anger coil tighter in his chest. "No problem," he said calmly. "I was just worried." Lauren exhaled, possibly relieved he didn't press further. She approached the counter, reaching for her phone. Ethan watched as she glanced at the screen, likely scanning the messages. She tensed for a fraction of a second, no doubt reading Gavin's text from earlier, then slid the phone into her bag without addressing it. Guilt flickered in her eyes, but she masked it with a forced brightness in her tone. "I'm exhausted," she said, stepping closer to him. "Mind if I shower and then we can order some takeout?" "Sure," he responded quietly, resisting every urge to confront her right then and there. But a confrontation without strategy wasn't Ethan's style. He believed in planning, gathering resources, ensuring the upper hand. That approach had served him well in the corporate battlefield, and if it turned out his own marriage was a battlefield too, he'd employ the same cunning tactics. Lauren offered a tight smile before heading upstairs. Ethan watched her go, stifling the urge to call her out, to demand the truth. Who the hell is Gavin, and how long has this been going on? Instead, he stayed in the living room, his fists clenched. He needed a game plan. Blind anger would accomplish nothing. Late that night, as Lauren slept beside him, apparently having no trouble dozing off, Ethan lay awake, eyes focused on the ceiling. Every so often, the hush of traffic outside lulled him closer to sleep, but his thoughts refused to settle. He was used to analyzing data, predicting outcomes, and forging strategic moves in software deals. This, however, was personal, and ironically, that was where his best advantage might lie. When his back was against the wall, Ethan's intellect sharpened to a razor's edge. He thought about the text. Last night was incredible. Did that mean dinner, drinks, or something more? In the darkest corners of his mind, he pictured them entwined, whispering, laughing at his ignorance. The notion ignited a quiet fury. This was not some petty fling with no stakes. Lauren was stepping on the trust he'd built with her for years. They'd built a marriage, a life. She wore the ring he picked out after months of searching for the perfect diamond to symbolize their unity. And now, that ring meant nothing? Ethan turned his head, scanning Lauren's peaceful face in the dim light. He recognized the woman he married, but she also looked like a stranger. Silently, he resolved, I'm going to find the truth, and if she's betraying me, she will regret it. The following morning, Lauren woke first, showered, dressed in a hurry, then left with a quick peck on Ethan's cheek, as though the distance between them was entirely in his imagination. He let her go, feigning casual acceptance. Once she was gone, Ethan reached for his phone and scrolled to Troy Walters' contact. Troy was a longtime friend and a retired detective who now did private investigative work on the side. The plan formed swiftly in Ethan's mind. He'd gather unimpeachable evidence. No more guesswork or half-formed suspicions. He wanted pictures, details, times. Control the narrative, Ethan, he told himself. That was always his mantra at Sky Edge. Don't ask for half the data. Collect it all, interpret it, and act decisively. With that, he stepped outside, breathed in the crisp Seattle air, and made the call to Troy. The conversation was brief, yet definitive. Troy, it's Ethan. I need your help with something personal. All right, Troy answered, voice calm and professional. Name it. My wife might be cheating on me. I need you to find out the truth. Ethan didn't waste time. The same morning he suspected Lauren had gone off to see her so-called art students, he arranged a lunch with Troy at a discreet bistro in downtown Seattle. The place was known for excellent coffee, but also for its quiet corners and subdued ambiance, a perfect spot for private talks. Troy Walters was in his mid-40s, sporting graying hair at the temples and a weathered face that reflected years spent digging into other people's secrets. He greeted Ethan with a firm handshake and a sincere look of concern. Been a while, Troy said, settling into the small booth. Didn't think we'd be meeting like this. Trust me neither, Ethan replied. He ordered a black coffee. Troy did the same. Then, once the waitress left, Ethan leaned forward. Lauren's showing signs. Strange behavior, late nights, suspicious messages. I found something on her phone that points to a man named Gavin. Troy rubbed his chin, a faint grimace on his lips. I'm sorry, Ethan, that's rough. Ethan straightened his posture. I appreciate the sympathy, but I'd rather talk solutions. I want facts, no speculation. That's the right approach, Troy agreed. I can follow her discreetly, see who she meets. I'll take photos, gather evidence. If you suspect she's using certain comm channels, I can set up minimal phone tracking. But I'll need her number, cell provider details, whatever you can share. Ethan gave a small nod. You'll have it all by tomorrow. Just keep it low profile. I don't want a messy confrontation yet. Troy sipped his coffee, watching Ethan closely. Understood. Are you sure you can handle what I might find? Ethan swallowed the bitterness in his mouth. Yeah, I'd rather know the truth, no matter how ugly. Then I can move forward. Meanwhile, Lauren's pattern continued. She spent afternoons at the local community college, teaching painting techniques, and early evenings supposedly meeting with students about an upcoming gallery show. When Ethan politely offered to attend one such session, she claimed it was a small, informal critique group that wouldn't interest him. Another deflection. On the second day of Troy's surveillance, he noticed she left the campus around 7 p.m. She got into her sedan, drove downtown, and parked near a high-end restaurant called Delamore. She entered alone. 15 minutes later, Gavin Croft arrived, a handsome man in a tailored suit. The two of them headed to a dimly lit booth in the back. They talked animatedly, leaning in close. Troy snapped photos from a discreet distance. He recognized the body language, intimate, comfortable. Not two colleagues chatting about neutral business. This was more. Their faces, their small touches, told the story better than any words could. Around 9 p.m., they left together. Lauren followed Gavin to a nearby condo building, the door closing behind them. She didn't emerge until 11:45. That same night, Bailey went out with friends to celebrate her internship's progress at Sky Edge. She never expected to see her sister-in-law, but fate had other plans. While her group waited for a table at Delamore's bar area, Bailey glimpsed Lauren slipping out with a man who wasn't Ethan. At first, Bailey almost doubted her own eyes. That can't be Lauren, can it? But as Lauren stepped beneath a soft overhead light, the distinctive shape of her face, her hair, was undeniable. She was laughing with this tall, confident stranger. Bailey's stomach twisted. She fumbled for her phone, contemplating texting Ethan that instant, but she hesitated. She didn't want to blow up the situation if there was some innocent explanation. Yet everything about the scene looked far from innocent. When Bailey finally texted Ethan an hour later, it was with trembling fingers. Bailey, 9:40 p.m. I saw Lauren at Delamore. She was with a man looking cozy. I'm worried. Should I talk to her? Ethan's reply came swiftly. Ethan, 9:42 p.m. No, don't approach her. Thank you for telling me. Just enjoy your night. I'll handle it. Bailey felt a surge of sorrow for her brother. She recalled how lovingly Ethan spoke about Lauren, how proud he was of her teaching career. If she's cheating, what does that do to our family? The photographic evidence from Troy, plus Bailey's accidental sighting, gave Ethan the confirmation he dreaded. Lauren was stepping out on him, no doubt about it. That night, Ethan couldn't sit still. He paced the living room while Bailey lingered near the stairs, wanting to give him space but also worried about him. Eventually, she mustered the courage to approach him. She said softly. I'm really sorry. I don't know how serious it is, but it looks serious from where I stood. Ethan nodded, a hardness settling in his eyes. Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. Still, Bailey whispered, I feel awful about it. Lauren was good to me, you know? She encouraged me to apply for your company's internship, said I had potential, but this I never saw it coming. He exhaled, hands on his hips. Neither did I. But I can't let that cloud my judgment. I'll get to the bottom of it. Don't worry about me, okay? Bailey reached out and squeezed his arm gently, then retreated upstairs. Ethan stood there, fists tightening, the sense of betrayal burning. He recalled the single text he'd read on Lauren's phone. That was amazing last night. He now knew what it likely meant. She wasn't just emotionally invested in another man, she was physically involved. That knowledge hammered him like a sledgehammer, but he refused to show it externally. He had to remain strong, analytical, methodical. If he lost his cool, Lauren would sense it, and he wanted her unsuspecting for as long as possible. By the time Lauren returned home that same night around midnight, Ethan was in his study. The house was mostly dark except for a single lamp illuminating various notes, documents, and photos Troy had provided. He heard her footsteps outside the study door, but she didn't enter. Probably she assumed he was still out or asleep. The fact she made no effort to check on him spoke volumes. He waited another hour, letting the house settle. Then he quietly rose, walked into the master bedroom, and found Lauren already asleep, turned away from his side of the bed. He climbed in, noticing the faint smell of wine on her breath, or perhaps champagne. She'd had a celebratory evening with her lover while Ethan wrestled with heartbreak and planning. The injustice fueled him. In that moment, he realized he wasn't simply a victim. He was a man who built an entire empire from scratch. He was Ethan Granger, known for his formidable negotiation tactics, keen insight, and unwavering drive. If Lauren and Gavin thought they could stab him in the back and get away with it, they were gravely mistaken. The next day, Troy's investigation deepened. He discovered that Gavin Croft, 40, was a venture capitalist with a track record that glimmered on the surface but reeked underneath. Gavin had funded a string of startups, but many floundered with lawsuits or suspicious bankruptcies. Rumors abounded that he lured founders into questionable deals, then drained the companies and moved on, leaving them in ruins. The more Ethan heard, the more he recognized a predator's pattern. Troy also uncovered whispers of gambling addictions. Gavin apparently owed significant sums to underground lenders, making him desperate for quick cash. That desperation, no doubt, extended to cozying up with Lauren, who was married to a wealthy CEO. As Ethan reviewed the reports in his office at Sky Edge, his mouth pressed into a thin line. So this Gavin wants more than my wife. He wants my money or business secrets, too. The fury coiled in Ethan's gut. He'd faced hostile takeovers before, but none so personal. This time, the competitor was sleeping with his wife just to gain access to him. One afternoon, while scanning her phone logs that Troy had forwarded, Ethan found short recordings or partial transcriptions of calls between Lauren and Gavin. They were mostly innocuous or flirtatious. But one snippet caught his attention. Lauren: "Ethan's always traveling or locked in his office. I feel invisible sometimes." Gavin: "You deserve better. Someone who truly sees you, appreciates your art, your soul." Lauren: "Sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake marrying a man who's unstoppable at everything but noticing me." The pang of betrayal cut deeper. He was unstoppable, yes. But did that justify her cheating? She could have voiced her concerns, sought counseling. Instead, she sneaked around, letting this manipulative leech of a man whisper sweet lines about how neglected she was. But the part that really stoked Ethan's anger was how comfortable Gavin sounded, like he knew exactly how to exploit her insecurities for personal gain. Ethan closed the file, exhaling a tense breath. He had enough evidence to confront Lauren outright and enough reason to wipe Gavin off the map, financially speaking. But he wasn't ready to strike yet. He needed to see exactly how far they'd go. In that quiet moment, a plan began to form in his mind, one that involved carefully feeding Gavin false information, letting him hang himself with his own greed. And if Lauren insisted on betraying him, well, she would discover exactly who Ethan Granger was. Ethan scheduled a confidential early morning conference with Diane Olson at an off-site location, a private co-working space that specialized in hush-hush deals. Diane, a sharp-witted corporate attorney in her late 30s, had represented Ethan's interests for years. When he explained the broad strokes that his wife might be colluding with a shady investor to glean insider information from Sky Edge, Diane arched a brow. "So it's not just emotional betrayal," she said, tapping her pen on a legal pad. "There's a hint of corporate espionage?" Ethan nodded. "I believe so. I overheard them discussing potential trade secrets. I want to protect my assets. Quietly restructure if needed." Diane leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "All right. The first step is to isolate any holdings you don't want entangled in a potential divorce settlement. If the affair becomes public, Lauren could attempt to claim part of Sky Edge, especially if Gavin's urging her." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I won't let them sabotage everything I built." Diane scribbled notes. "We can set up new shell entities to hold the intangible IP. That way, if someone tries to claim it, they'll find empty shells with no direct link to you personally. Officially, you'll remain the CEO, but the real control will be shielded." Ethan nodded, arms folded. "Make it happen. Also, if Gavin tries something with my upcoming product launch, I want to feed him enough rope to hang himself. I've considered distributing some false code. Let him steal it, watch it blow up in his face." A faint smile curled on Diane's lips. "That's risky, but brilliant. Just be sure you don't accidentally undermine your real launch." He met her gaze with a cold determination. "Diane, I thrive on risk, and I'm done being passive. This is war." At the townhouse, Ethan made sure to act as though nothing significant had changed. He'd greet Lauren in the mornings, give her a casual goodbye kiss, though inside, it felt hollow. In the evenings, he sometimes made dinner or ordered takeout, feigning mild exhaustion from the office. He even asked about her day, letting her weave further lies about student exhibits. The more she lied, the more she unwittingly gave him ammunition. Some nights, she'd slip out with the excuse, "I have to pick up extra materials for the art show," or "I promised I'd help a student prep their portfolio." Ethan would simply nod, as if unconcerned. But inside, he seethed, counting down the hours until he could finalize his revenge plan. Bailey watched this dynamic with wary eyes. She was no fool. She understood Ethan had discovered the betrayal, yet the fatherly, brotherly figure she admired remained stoic. In quiet moments, she'd murmur, "Do you want me to do anything? Tell her I know?" And Ethan would gently shake his head. "Not yet," he'd say. "Just let her tie her own noose." Troy installed a small transmitter in Lauren's car, hidden near the base of the steering wheel. The device allowed Ethan to hear her phone calls made via speaker or Bluetooth. It wasn't entirely legal, but Troy had his ways. He specialized in walking that fine line. The first day or two, they caught random calls. Lauren talking to girlfriends, discussing color palettes, or exchanging niceties with some professor. Nothing substantial. Then a conversation with Gavin surfaced. Lauren, driving. "It's not that easy to just ask Ethan about encryption details, but I can do something. He trusts me enough to leave files on his desk. Maybe I can copy them?" Gavin, "Now we're talking. I have a potential buyer who'd pay a fortune for advanced encryption. Plus, if I can leverage it, I might pay off some outstanding obligations." Lauren, "Outstanding obligations? Are you in trouble, Gav?" Gavin laughs wryly. "Nothing major. Just typical business dealings. Don't worry about me. Worry about how you'll get the info. That is, if you still want our life together." Lauren's pause was telling. She wanted to keep him happy. "I do. I'll figure it out. Just don't push me too hard, okay?" The arrogance in Gavin's voice made Ethan's blood boil. He pictured the man's smug grin, the way he'd pour honeyed words into Lauren's ear for profit. Ethan clenched his phone, forcibly calming himself. "You want encryption code? Fine. I'll give you all the code you can handle, buddy." The day of the investor summit at SkyEdge loomed. It was a major event for Ethan's company, one that could catapult them into a new stratosphere of tech prominence. But behind the scenes, Ethan carefully laid traps. He created a separate dummy project folder loaded with sophisticated but intentionally flawed code. Then he labeled it encryption_scheme_2026_confidential and left it on his personal office computer, easily accessible if Lauren snooped. In parallel, he worked with Diane to finalize the asset restructuring. SkyEdge's real IP would be off-limits, safe in a new corporate entity. The code he publicly showcased at the summit would be genuine, but well-guarded. The code he left for Lauren's prying eyes was worthless and even dangerous. Anyone trying to implement it would face catastrophic system breaches, lawsuits, or both. One late night, after finishing the code decoy, Ethan stood by the living room window. Rain pattered softly on the panes, the city lights smearing into watery reflections. He felt a heaviness inside, a sense of betrayal gnawing at him. He'd always believed trust was the bedrock of marriage, and here he was, orchestrating a grand deception against his own wife because she'd betrayed him first. Bailey came downstairs in pajamas, noticing his forlorn stance. She walked over, softly placed a hand on his shoulder. "You okay?" she asked, her voice thick with concern. He swallowed, staring out into the rain. "I'm fine," he lied gently. Then he sighed. "No, I'm not fine, but I'm handling it." She squeezed his shoulder. "I'm sorry this happened. I know you love her. Are you sure there's no chance for counseling or something?" Ethan's eyes hardened. "She's plotting with this Gavin creep to steal from me. It's not just an affair, it's sabotage. That's beyond saving." Bailey lowered her gaze. "I understand. I just hate seeing you hurt." A brief flicker of emotion passed across Ethan's face. "I appreciate that. But sometimes you have to be ruthless to protect what's yours." Bailey nodded, tears brimming in her eyes for a moment. Without another word, she left him to his thoughts. Ethan inhaled slowly. letting the anger fill him like a second heartbeat. Time to be ruthless, he reminded himself. Sure enough, within days, Lauren started asking more direct questions about the upcoming launch. She feigned interest in understanding his work better, something she'd rarely done in the past. Ethan played along, adopting a half-smile and a proud tone. He showed her bits of code, never letting her photograph the real stuff. Instead, he planted references to the dummy project folder. "You see this encryption approach, Lauren?" he said, sliding a file toward her across the dining table. She eyed it curiously. "It's all about partitioning data into microblocks with dynamic keys. Revolutionary. We'll blow the competition out of the water." Lauren nodded, forcing a smile. "Wow, I had no idea it was so advanced. Must be valuable." Ethan suppressed a smirk. "Valuable enough that I keep those files locked up. But I trust you. Just don't go showing it around." She laughed nervously. "Of course not, honey. That's our livelihood." At that, Ethan felt the irony stinging. Our livelihood? You're about to sell it for some cheap thrill with Gavin. But he maintained the outward affection, even leaning to kiss her cheek, ignoring the simmering disgust inside. That same evening, while driving back from dinner with Gavin, Lauren's phone connected to her car's Bluetooth. She began explaining Ethan's demonstration of the encryption code. Unaware that Troy's device caught it all, Lauren: "He literally showed me some documents, said it's locked up, but he left them on his desk. I can go in, copy them to a flash drive." Gavin, excited: "Brilliant. Grab as much as you can. I'll pass it off to a contact who's big in the cybersecurity sector. They'll pay a hefty sum." Lauren: "He trusts me, so it shouldn't be too hard. Are you sure this will help you get out of debt or whatever?" Gavin, smug: "Absolutely. Trust me, babe. Once we have that code, I'll clear everything, and we can start fresh somewhere else, just you and me." Lauren inhaled audibly. "Okay, I'll do it tomorrow while he's out." Ethan listened to the clip the next morning. His eyes flashed. Tomorrow, while I'm out. Perfect. He was a master of timing, after all. With Lauren poised to steal the decoy code and Gavin itching to hawk it for quick cash, Ethan had every reason to finalize the trap. Soon, they'd attempt their heist. And once they did, there would be no denying their guilt. Ethan Granger would have them precisely where he wanted them, on the brink of ruin. Ethan meticulously planned his day to step out for a series of errands, leaving his home office unguarded except for subtle surveillance. He informed Lauren he had meetings with an old partner who might invest in SkyEdge, a half-truth that sounded legitimate enough to her. Meanwhile, Bailey arranged to be away as well, giving Lauren free rein. At least that's what Lauren would assume. Sure enough, around 2 p.m. Ethan's laptop signaled an external USB had been inserted. Lauren had no idea the system was set to log every file copied in real time. A silent security camera in the corner of the office recorded her quickly transferring the dummy encryption folder to a flash drive. She typed fast, eyes darting, posture tense like a novice thief worried about being caught. The moment she finished, she ejected the drive, stashed it in her pocket, and crept out of the house. Ethan watched from a remote feed on his phone while parked a few blocks away. He couldn't help a small, mirthless chuckle at her clumsy subterfuge. So this is it. My wife is literally stealing from me. Troy trailed Lauren as she drove to an upscale hotel lounge downtown. Gavin was already there, nursing a bourbon, scanning the room like a man awaiting crucial news. When Lauren slid into the seat across from him, Troy managed to snap photos from a side area disguised by potted plants. Lauren, whispering, "I have it. The entire encryption package." Gavin, "You're amazing. Let me see." She pulled the small flash drive from her purse, handing it over discreetly. Gavin's eyes lit up. He signaled a waiter, ordering champagne like they'd just won the lottery. The tension between them was thick Lauren's guilt swirling with Gavin's greed. That evening, SkyEdge hosted a lavish pre-launch party at a stylish event venue, with glass walls overlooking the Seattle skyline. Soft jazz played, waiters passed hors d'oeuvres, and well-dressed investors mingled, eager to see Ethan's demonstration of his new encryption breakthroughs. The formal unveiling would be tomorrow, but tonight was a celebratory preview. Ethan arrived in a crisp, tailored suit, greeting people with a calm confidence that belied the storm brewing in his personal life. To his slight surprise, Lauren showed up as well arm-in-arm with him, wearing a sleek black dress. She performed her role perfectly, playing the supportive wife in front of the high-profile crowd. Meanwhile, Gavin lingered near the bar, feigning casual interest in the proceedings. If anyone asked, he was just another potential investor. Bailey, dressed in a simple but elegant gown, hovered close to her brother, occasionally flashing him an anxious look. Ethan would nod reassuringly, letting her know they were on track. "Stay calm, sis. The show's about to begin." Diane moved through the crowd with a smile, also aware of the planned fireworks to come. At around 8 p.m., Ethan took the stage, just a small raised platform with a microphone. A hush fell. Cameras from local tech media outlets swiveled in his direction. He delivered a smooth talk about the future of data security, how SkyEdge planned to lead with advanced encryption. Everyone watched, enthralled. Then he paused, scanning the audience until he found Gavin. The man stood near the edges, sipping a drink, eyes narrowed. Lauren was off to one side, biting her lip. She looked uneasy, possibly wondering if Ethan suspected anything. Ethan took a breath, summoning that CEO charisma, and then pivoted his speech. "Before I continue, I'd like to address an important matter, one that concerns the integrity of everything we do here at SkyEdge." On large screens behind Ethan, images began to flicker. The crowd turned to watch. First, a clip showed Lauren and Gavin at the condo's lobby, time-stamped. Another showed them at Delamore Restaurant, leaning in intimately. Muted audio tracks displayed transcriptions of them discussing code theft. Gasps rippled through the audience. Some recognized Lauren as Ethan's wife, a frequent presence at company gatherings. Lauren's face drained of color. Gavin stiffened, looking around for an escape. "Ethan," voice resonating, "I built SkyEdge on trust and innovation. But trust has been violated by two individuals who attempted to steal confidential IP for personal gain." He tapped a remote. Next footage rolled a short clip of Lauren entering Ethan's private office that very afternoon. The entire act of her copying files, handing them to Gavin in the hotel lounge. The evidence was indisputable. Journalists snapped photos. A hush of shock enveloped the room. Lauren rushed onto the small platform, tears shining in her eyes. She clutched Ethan's arm, voice trembling for the mic to pick up. "Ethan, please! I was manipulated! Gavin threatened me! Ethan gently but firmly dislodged her grip. He turned to face her, stepping away from the microphone, but still within earshot of the crowd. "Threatened you? Lauren, you had 100 chances to tell me the truth. Instead, you chose to betray me. In front of everyone, you act like I'm some inattentive spouse. But behind my back, you stole from me." She sobbed, mascara running. The press cameras flashed, capturing her downfall. "I was lonely," she gasped. "I felt overshadowed by your success. You never—" Ethan glared, eyes cold. "So you sold me out to someone who wanted to sabotage my life's work? That's how you handle loneliness?" Lauren collapsed in tears, while many in the crowd looked on, half in pity, half in horror at the spectacle. Seizing an opportunity to slip out, Gavin tried to skirt the perimeter, but Troy, flanked by two private security guards, intercepted him. The tension was palpable. Gavin glared at them, hissing, "Back off! You can't hold me here!" Troy calmly brandished a folder. "Actually, we can. We have documents, phone recordings, and video evidence. Not to mention law enforcement is on the way." It was almost cinematic. Gavin pivoted, scanning for another path, only to bump into a pair of unsavory-looking men loan sharks he owed money to, who also recognized him from across the room. They'd been tipped off by Ethan's team, ironically. The men sneered, stepping menacingly close. "Remember us, Croft? Thought we wouldn't find you in this fancy crowd?" The color drained from Gavin's face. From the frying pan into the fire. He was pinned from both sides now, legally and physically. In the swirl of chaos, reporters shoved microphones. Guests muttered in scandalized tones. Ethan maintained a composed posture, stepping off the platform. Diane joined him, carrying an envelope stuffed with every scrap of damning evidence. She handed it directly to a police officer who had arrived at the venue in response to a courtesy call Ethan arranged earlier. "Diane, here's the proof of attempted theft, fraud, conspiracy. Enough to hold them until we press full charges." The officer nodded, scanning the top pages. He signaled his partner, who moved in to cuff Gavin. The gambler sputtered curses, eyes darting in desperation. Lauren stood only a few feet away, sobbing, makeup streaking down her face. She glanced at Ethan with a mixture of remorse and terror. Several attendees recognized Lauren from local art circles or from the college where she taught. Smartphones recorded her meltdown as she buried her face in trembling hands. She was done. The betrayal was front and center on a stage bigger than any she'd ever faced. Ethan took a measured breath. Approaching her slightly, he spoke into the microphone one last time, voice low and crisp. "I gave you trust, Lauren Granger. I gave you a life of comfort and opportunity. You chose to toss it aside for a con man. Now the world sees the truth." The crowd parted, letting him walk through. Bailey followed, eyes brimming with tears. But not for Lauren. She felt empathy for Ethan's heartbreak. The moment was everything he had planned. A public unmasking of traitors, so thorough that no spin could salvage it. Gavin was being handcuffed. Lauren was sobbing. The press was salivating. It's done, Ethan thought. Or at least, the primary blow was struck. As the cameras continued flashing and the police led Gavin away, Ethan paused in the corridor, inhaling a steadying breath. Part of him expected to feel triumphant. Instead, he felt a hollow ache. Revenge had begun with cold rationale, but now that the final blow was delivered, a creeping emptiness lingered. I've destroyed them, both of them. Now what? Still, he set his shoulders, telling himself that closure might come later. For now, justice had been served. Lauren would face the fallout of her betrayal. Gavin would face the legal system, and perhaps worse. And Ethan would move on, forging a new path unburdened by lies. The aftermath of the public unmasking at SkyEdge's pre-launch gala had rippled through Seattle's social and business circles like a thunderclap. Within hours, local news blogs splashed headlines about the high-stakes betrayal starring tech mogul Ethan Granger, his wife Lauren, and the infamous investor Gavin Croft. By the next morning, every major paper ran a variation of the story, complete with snapshots of a tear-streaked Lauren and a handcuffed Gavin. For Ethan, the publicity was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it vindicated him. He'd meticulously orchestrated the reveal to shield his company and expose the conspirators. On the other, he couldn't shake the ache of having his private heartbreak flaunted for all to see. But heartbreak didn't stop the world from spinning. The official product launch loomed, and with it came a surge of investor interest. Ethan had to keep forging ahead, publicly composed, privately seething with unresolved fury. 2 days after the gala meltdown, Ethan stood in a SkyEdge conference room lined with glass walls, staring out at the skyline. Rain tapped gently against the glass, a steady percussion that matched his subdued mood. At his back, half a dozen department heads waited for him to speak. They were edgy, uncertain how to approach the elephant in the room. The CEO's personal life had just been blown sky-high. Finally, Ethan turned around and faced his team. His expression was calm, but the tension in his posture revealed deeper unrest. "Let's address the situation directly," he began, voice measured. "You've all seen the news. You know about the attempted theft of proprietary code. First, I need to assure you that the real encryption framework remains uncompromised. Second, we'll proceed with our product launch as planned." A hush settled. One senior engineer ventured a careful question. "Sir, do you anticipate any negative fallout that might impact investor confidence?" Ethan allowed a slight reassuring nod. "I won't lie, the optics are messy, but we've already handled the immediate threat. Croft has been charged. If the prosecution does its job, he'll be facing serious consequences. Lauren, well, she was complicit, but we don't need to dwell on that. Our stance remains. SkyEdge was the victim here, and we're not letting it derail our momentum." Nobody dared mention that the victim's name was also the CEO's wife. They simply nodded and shifted focus to the launch details. It was exactly the response Ethan needed from them, purely professional. He was grateful for it. He'd had enough of pitying looks and whispered sympathies. After the meeting, Ethan retreated to his corner office, a modern space with sleek decor. He locked the door for privacy, letting out a slow exhale as he approached the windows. Once again, a familiar pang of emptiness churned in his chest. The savage satisfaction of exposing Lauren's affair had been fleeting. Now he felt only a dull ache, a sense of betrayal that refused to fade. He tapped his phone to check new messages. There were dozens from acquaintances, some wanting to express shock or support, others shamelessly prying for gossip. Ethan ignored most, skimming only the few from close friends. A short text from Bailey read, "Hanging in there? I'm around if you want to talk." He typed a terse reply. "Busy, but fine. Let's catch up soon." Then he tossed the phone on his desk and slumped into the chair. For a moment he just stared at the blank surface, remembering how Lauren had once sat on the edge of this same desk, playfully teasing him about being a workaholic. That memory felt like it belonged to a different life. A knock sounded on the office door. "Yes?" he called out. Diane Olson entered his corporate lawyer looking impeccably professional in a tailored navy blazer. She held a slim folder in one hand. "Got a minute?" "Sure," Ethan said, gesturing for her to sit. She closed the door behind her. "I wanted to update you on the legal angles. The DA is drafting charges against Gavin Croft. Attempted corporate espionage, fraud, conspiracy. They may consider adding more if they find a pattern in his prior dealings." As for Lauren, Diane paused, gauging his reaction. "They're looking at her role, too." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So she may be indicted?" "Yes, though it's less certain. Her lawyers could argue she was manipulated, not the mastermind. Still, we have pretty damning evidence that she actively participated. The prosecution might push for a plea deal in exchange for her testifying against Gavin. Or they could charge her outright." The mere thought of Lauren in jail gave Ethan an unexpected jolt of sympathy followed by a swirl of anger at himself for feeling that. She'd betrayed him. But was he ready to see her life destroyed? Maybe yes, maybe no. He swallowed. "I suppose that's the DA's call." Diane nodded. "Correct. I'll keep you informed. Meanwhile, from a civil standpoint, we can file a lawsuit against both of them for damages if you choose." Ethan's gaze shifted to the window, focusing on a plane slicing across the gray sky. "And what do you recommend?" She hesitated. "It depends on whether you want to push further. You already humiliated them publicly. If you go civil, you'll drag it out in court for months, maybe years. Possibly seize any assets they have. That'll be intense." He drummed his fingers on the desk. The notion of total financial ruin for Gavin was tempting, especially if it forced him to repay any stolen funds. But Lauren, did Ethan want to see her bankrupt? "I'm not sure," he admitted. "Part of me wants them to pay, but the other part just wants all of this to be over." Diane placed the folder gently on his desk. "We can wait to see how the criminal case goes. No need to rush." Ethan nodded, giving a curt smile. "Thanks. Let's do that." That evening, Bailey swung by Ethan's condo unannounced, tapping lightly on the door before letting herself in. She carried a paper bag of Thai takeout, Ethan's favorite drunken noodles, and a tentative smile. "Hey," she said softly, stepping into his minimalist living room. The place still had an immaculate designer feel, but tension lurked in the corners. "I thought you might not have eaten." Ethan, who'd been hunched over his laptop at the dining table, greeted her with mild surprise. "Thanks, Bales. You didn't have to." She shrugged. "I wanted to. You look like you're running on fumes." They settled at the table, unwrapping cartons of steamed rice and spicy noodles. The aroma filled the air, a comforting contrast to the heavy conversation that hovered just out of reach. For a minute, they ate in silence, the only sound the scraping of utensils. Finally, Bailey mustered the courage to broach the obvious topic. "So how are you holding up, really?" Ethan's jaw clenched, but he forced himself not to wave her concern away. "I'm coping. Busy with the launch. This fiasco nearly overshadowed it, but we're forging ahead." "Work, work, work," she murmured. "And emotionally?" He set down his fork, exhaling. Angry, betrayed, relieved it's all out in the open, then guilty for feeling relieved. "It's a mess in my head." Bailey reached across the table and placed a gentle hand on his forearm. "It's normal. You loved her, or at least the person you thought she was. Now it's complicated. Let yourself feel whatever comes." He offered her a sad smile. "Thanks. I'm trying. But every time I think about the details, they're late nights. The lies, I just want to bury myself in work so I don't have to dwell on it." Bailey squeezed his arm lightly, then withdrew. Sometimes burying yourself in work is fine, but not as a permanent solution. Don't forget to be human, E. He nodded. I'll keep that in mind. They resumed eating, the conversation shifting to lighter topics: her internship, new responsibilities at Sky Edge, small office gossip. For a brief time, Ethan felt an unexpected warmth in the condo, a fleeting sense of normalcy. He silently thanked Bailey for that. Family, at least, was still intact. Across town, Lauren sat in a cramped studio apartment she'd hastily rented after leaving the upscale townhouse. She had no illusions about returning to the place she once shared with Ethan. He'd effectively barred her entry, and she didn't have the nerve to contest it. Her new digs were a far cry from the sleek, modern home. The single window faced a brick wall, and the outdated kitchen smelled faintly of mold. She stared at her phone, reading the barrage of messages she'd been avoiding. Some from old friends who demanded to know if the rumors were true, others from acquaintances who simply expressed shock. One from the college HR, coldly stating she was on indefinite suspension pending an investigation into her role in corporate theft. She had no classes to teach now, no paycheck on the horizon. She'd tried to hold a press conference to salvage her reputation, but it backfired. Nobody believed her story that Gavin manipulated her. The humiliating footage had told a different tale. A single tear slid down her cheek. She'd done this to herself, she knew. And yet a flicker of resentment lingered. Why hadn't Ethan listened to her sorrow before she strayed? It was self-serving logic, but it was the only rationalization she had left. Lauren swallowed her pride and typed a text. Lauren, to Ethan. I know you hate me. I'm sorry for everything. I miss what we had. I hope we can talk one day. She hit send. 2 hours later, no reply came. She wasn't even sure if he'd read it. Feeling hollow, she lay on the tiny bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. She was alone, jobless, and the man she'd risked her marriage for, Gavin, was possibly rotting in a jail cell. Or maybe he'd already posted bail. She didn't know. He hadn't reached out. Her new reality was bleak indeed. While Ethan managed the day-to-day chaos at Sky Edge, his friend-turned-private investigator Troy kept an ear to the ground about Gavin's situation. One afternoon, Troy dropped by Ethan's condo, sporting a casual bomber jacket instead of his usual stealth attire. They sat in the living room, sipping black coffee as the late afternoon light slanted through the windows. Troy leafed through a small notepad, eyes scanning the scribbles. So, update on Croft, Troy began. He's out on bail. Someone posted the bond. It's not cheap, so likely one of his old VC buddies or maybe some undertheatable arrangement. Ethan's eyebrows lifted slightly. He's free. That's surprising. I assumed he'd sit in jail longer. Gavin's slippery. Always has been, Troy said, tapping his pen. He's confined to the state, though. If he violates those terms, bail's revoked and there's a warrant. My guess? He's desperate to cut a deal or run some angle to recoup money. Also, rumor is some of his gambling creditors want his head on a platter. Ethan's jaw tensed. So he's cornered. That can make him dangerous. Troy nodded. Precisely. Keep your security protocols up, especially around your home and the office. He might try something reckless if he thinks it can keep him afloat. Ethan allowed a humorless chuckle. Let him try. He'll only dig himself deeper. They sat in reflective silence a moment. Then Troy cleared his throat. How about Lauren? Heard anything from her side? Ethan waved dismissively. She texted me an apology. I haven't responded. I don't see the point. Troy gave him a long look, measuring his emotions. All right, but be aware. If she's indicted, things could get complicated. She might blame you for setting the trap, claiming entrapment, or that you pushed her to do it. The defense might spin a narrative. Ethan scoffed. She'd be lying. My only involvement was leaving false code accessible in my own home office. Sure, but lawyers can twist anything. Troy paused. Are you prepared for that fight? Ethan's gaze hardened. I've never backed down from a fight in my life, Troy. I don't plan to start now. That same evening, in a dingy motel near the outskirts of Seattle, Gavin Croft paced the stained carpet. Gone were his bespoke suits. He wore a crumpled dress shirt and slacks, signs of a man in freefall. A half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey sat on the rickety nightstand, next to a battered laptop. He'd posted bail with money borrowed from an unnamed associate, but that associate was now breathing down his neck, demanding swift repayment. Gavin ran a shaky hand through his hair, cursing Ethan under his breath. That smug CEO had outmaneuvered him, destroyed his credibility, and triggered an avalanche of debt calls. Every hour, a new creditor or ex-partner texted him threats. He thought about skipping town, but with his bail conditions, he'd be labeled a fugitive. Then again, maybe fleeing was better than rotting in prison. A beep on his laptop alerted him to an incoming message from a burner account he'd set up. The subject line read, "Potential investor willing to meet." Gavin's pulse quickened. Maybe he could salvage something from the fiasco. If there was an investor out there who still believed in his acumen or had no idea about the scandal, he could con them into a quick influx of cash. The question, could he do it fast enough to pay off the sharks and avoid jail? He typed a reply, hands shaking. "Let's meet. Name the place." While Gavin schemed, Lauren wrestled with guilt and shame. The next morning, she left her shabby studio apartment early to wander the city aimlessly, uncertain where else to go. She couldn't return to the college she was persona non grata. She didn't dare show her face at the fancy galleries that once welcomed her. Instead, she ended up by the harbor, watching the ferries drift across Puget Sound. Memories haunted her. The day she and Ethan strolled this same waterfront, laughing about seagulls snatching tourists' fries. They'd seemed so united then. She sank onto a bench, the cold wind biting at her cheeks. She'd read that Ethan was forging ahead with the official product launch next week, unstoppable as always. Did he ever truly love her? Or had she just been another piece of his carefully curated life? She told herself it was both. He did love her once, but also overshadowed her. Her heart twisted with regret. Why didn't I talk to him more instead of seeking validation from Gavin? That question tormented her. She'd blame Ethan for ignoring her, but she knew at least half the blame was hers. A vibration in her coat pocket startled her. Glancing at the screen, she saw an unfamiliar number. She hesitated, then answered. "Lauren? It's your mother," came the voice on the line, apparently using a borrowed phone. Lauren tensed. She hadn't spoken to her mother in months. "Mom, how did you get this number?" "Your aunt gave it to me," the woman answered, sounding worried. "Lauren, what the hell is going on? I saw the news. Are you in trouble?" Tears pricked Lauren's eyes. "Yeah, I messed up." Her mother's tone softened. "I can't say I understand, but you're my daughter. Let me help. Where are you staying?" Lauren almost choked on a sob. She couldn't believe she was such a mess she'd have to rely on her distant mother. "Just a small place. It's fine. I'm dealing with it." A pause. Then her mother said, "If you need anything, money, a place to lay low, call me. Don't let your pride ruin your life." Lauren closed her eyes, tears slipping free. "Thanks, Mom," she whispered. "I'll think about it." She ended the call. The sense of drifting grew heavier. Part of her wanted to escape to some other state, bury the shame. But how would she outrun the legal ramifications? The entire city, the entire internet, knew her face and name. This is my reality now, she thought in despair. While Lauren battled guilt at the harbor, Ethan was in a crisp meeting with major tech players at a downtown high-rise. The official product launch was in 3 days and hype was building to a fever pitch. He'd lined up demonstrations, prepared digital assets, and secured high-profile keynotes. Investors were already drooling over potential applications. The fiasco with Gavin and Lauren had ironically fueled public curiosity. What is this encryption that people were willing to commit crime for? Ethan exploited that angle quietly, spinning the narrative that his technology was so revolutionary, thieves tried to steal it. The marketing team, at his discreet direction, dropped hints about the code's robust capacity to protect data from quantum-level hacking. It was a bit sensational, but it worked. If there was one thing Ethan understood, it was the power of controlling the story. After the meeting, as associates filed out, one lingered. A distinguished older gentleman named Bennett Langford, a venture capitalist with a reputation for fairness. He approached Ethan with a thoughtful expression. Mr. Granger, Langford began, I wanted to commend you for your poise under such personal and professional strain. If half the rumors are true, you've been through the ringer. Ethan dipped his head. Thank you, sir. It hasn't been easy. Langford sighed, adjusting his blazer. I suppose not. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I've seen many corporate betrayals, but rarely one so personal. Ethan felt a flicker of genuine appreciation for the man's empathy. Your sympathy means a lot. Truly. Langford nodded, then added, If you ever need a listening ear or a fresh perspective outside the usual circle, give me a call. He slipped a business card into Ethan's hand and departed. Ethan stared at the card, feeling a subtle warmth, a kind gesture in a sea of corporate sharks. Maybe not everyone was a potential traitor. 2 nights before the launch, as Ethan prepared to leave SkyEdge, he received an urgent text from Diane. Gavin wants to meet. Says he has a proposition. I told him no, but he insists you should hear him out. Ethan frowned at the phone. A proposition? That sounded like a scam or a last-ditch blackmail attempt. But curiosity itched at him. Another message followed from Diane. He'll be at Redwood Tavern in Pioneer Square at 10 p.m. He claims it's about clearing your name further or some nonsense. Probably rubbish. At first, Ethan considered ignoring it, but part of him wanted to see the man again, to witness the desperation in his eyes. Troy's cautionary words rang in his head. Be careful, he's cornered. Indeed, a cornered predator might strike blindly. Then again, Ethan had always been able to handle himself. He texted Diane back, I'll go. Thanks for the heads-up. That same evening, after telling Bailey he had a late meeting, Ethan drove to Redwood Tavern, a dimly lit, old-fashioned bar that smelled of spilled beer and decades-old wood varnish. He walked in, scanning the patrons until he spotted Gavin slouched in a booth at the far corner, a baseball cap pulled low. The tension was palpable. Ethan approached the booth, heart pounding with a mix of anger and curiosity. Gavin looked up, eyes bloodshot and expression hollow. He gestured for Ethan to sit. As Ethan slid in across from him, he caught the sour reek of whiskey on Gavin's breath. Gavin cleared his throat. Thanks for coming. Ethan's gaze was ice cold. Make it quick. I have nothing to say to you unless it's hearing you beg for mercy. A bitter laugh escaped Gavin's lips. Mercy, yeah. We both know you're not big on that. Why would I be? Ethan snapped. You tried to steal from me, humiliated me in public by seducing my wife. And now you want to chat? Gavin exhaled shakily, fiddling with an empty shot glass on the table. Look, I messed up. But I have leads information that could help you. People in my circle who also tried to undermine you. If I go down, they go free to keep sabotaging you. But if we strike a deal... Ethan's brow arched in disdain. You're peddling conspiracies. This is pathetic. Gavin's eyes flashed. Not conspiracies' actual names. They financed me in exchange for certain advantages. They hate you, Ethan. They want to see SkyEdge fail. If you don't let me help, they'll regroup. You'll never see them coming. Ethan studied the man, noticing the desperation etched in his face. So you propose what? I drop charges or lighten them in exchange for these names? Gavin shifted uncomfortably. I was thinking maybe you speak to the DA, ask them to go easy on me, or hold off on your civil lawsuit that could bankrupt me. In return, I give you the full layout emails, bank transactions, everything that shows who was behind me. Ethan stared at him, gears turning. This might be real, or it might be a last-ditch attempt at blackmail. And what if you're lying, or you have nothing? Gavin's lips curled in a bitter smile. Then you lose nothing except maybe an hour of your time. But if I'm telling the truth, you could fortify SkyEdge from bigger threats. Silence stretched, thick with tension. Ethan weighed the risk. He despised Gavin, but he also despised the idea of shadowy backers continuing to target him. Finally, he exhaled. All right, I'll consider it. But don't get your hopes up for a free pass. Gavin nodded hastily, relief flickering in his eyes. That's all I ask. Once I gather the docs, I'll reach out. Might take me a few days. Ethan rose, ignoring the swirl of revulsion in his gut. He couldn't believe he was entertaining anything from this snake. But knowledge was power. If you're lying, you'll regret it, he warned. And if you're telling the truth well, we'll see. He left the tavern without a backward glance, unsettled by the entire encounter. Once outside in the crisp night air, he clenched and unclenched his fists. What if Gavin's claims are valid? That means bigger fish are circling my waters. The possibility of a hidden network out to sabotage him was not a comforting thought. In the days following Ethan's clandestine meetup with Gavin, Seattle buzzed with anticipation for SkyEdge's official encryption launch. Despite the personal turmoil, Ethan kept his public face unwavering. He told himself this was just another crisis to outmaneuver like any business threat. But the emotional weight of Lauren's betrayal and the uncertain specter of further sabotage gnawed at him. The grand unveiling took place in the main auditorium of Seattle's cutting-edge TechSphere Convention Center. Giant screens showcased dynamic graphics of data streams being locked down by neon-coded encryption, while a narrator's voiceover extolled the virtues of SkyEdge's advanced security solution. More than 1,000 attendees, investors, partners, journalists crowded the seats, eager to watch Ethan Granger present his new digital fortress to the world. Backstage, Ethan straightened his tie, brushed an invisible speck of dust off his suit, and inhaled to steady his nerves. Bailey hovered by his side, offering a water bottle. Troy and Diane were also present, each playing a supportive role behind the scenes. The fiasco with Lauren and Gavin still lingered in everyone's memory, but this event was about the future. The show must go on. A staff member called Ethan forward, and the stage lights brightened. He strode onto the stage, applause thundering. As he gazed at the crowd, the hush of expectancy gave him a small rush of adrenaline. This is what I live for, he thought. The chance to shape the narrative on his own terms. Good morning, he began, voice amplifying across the auditorium. Welcome to SkyEdge's introduction of a new era in data encryption. He spoke about the solution's ability to defend against quantum computing threats, how it could scale from personal devices to massive enterprise systems. Each point earned nods and murmurs of approval. When he wrapped up with a demonstration, the crowd burst into applause. Cameras flashed, media reps jotted notes. Ethan allowed himself a moment of gratification. Despite the personal meltdown, he delivered, proving to the world that no betrayal could derail his ambition. After the presentation, Ethan joined a networking reception in the convention center's atrium. People mingled by standing cocktail tables, sipping champagne or espresso. Tech bloggers rushed him with microphones. Mr. Granger, how do you feel about the project's success amid the recent scandal? Ethan repeated a polished response about maintaining professional focus while trusting the legal process. In the background, a few recognized Lauren's absence. Some whispered, he must have kicked her out for good. Others speculated, isn't the co-conspirator investor locked up? The swirling gossip irritated Ethan, but he kept a calm mask. He refused to let them see him sweat. Soon, a tall woman in a charcoal pantsuit approached with a press badge reading, Hillary Rain Tech Insider. She offered a polite smile. Ethan Granger? Hillary Rain, I'd love a quick comment about how you overcame the personal sabotage to launch successfully. He studied her. I overcame it by working with an incredible team and staying true to our mission. The sabotage was personal, yes, but at SkyEdge we have protocols that prevented any real damage. Hillary nodded, pen poised. Any stance on the rumored bigger conspiracy behind Gavin Croft? Word on the street suggests he might have had backing from powerful interests. Ethan's heart skipped. That was exactly what Gavin hinted at. I can't comment on speculation. We'll let the authorities handle it. Hillary jotted a note, then glanced up. Understood. Congratulations on a triumphant day, Mr. Granger. I look forward to covering your next move. She melted back into the crowd, leaving Ethan pondering how widely these rumors had spread. Gavin's bigger fish, is this rumor just hot air, or does it have legs? Toward the end of the reception, as the crowd thinned, a man Ethan didn't recognize sidled up to him. Gray hair, slight stoop, a face that hinted at cunning behind a mask of mild politeness. He wore no name tag, which was odd for an event requiring them. He offered a half smile. Fine presentation, Mr. Granger. Ethan arched a brow. Thank you. And you are? The man ignored the question, stepping closer. You faced a betrayal that would have sunk many CEOs, yet here you stand, launching successfully. Quite a testament to your resilience. Ethan felt the hair on his neck prickle. I manage, he said dryly. Is there something you want? Only to remind you, the man said quietly, that in business trust can be fleeting. The people who stand with you today might stand against you tomorrow. A spike of annoyance lanced through Ethan. What's your point? The man's eyes glittered. Just a friendly heads-up. Some alliances run deeper than you realize. Gavin Croft was a small piece in a larger puzzle. He let that hang for a moment. Have a nice day, Mr. Granger. Then he turned and vanished into the departing crowd, leaving Ethan unsettled. Did that man come solely to deliver a veiled threat? Ethan scanned the area, searching for Troy or Diane. He spotted Troy by the far wall, gesturing at him with a question in his eyes. Ethan shook his head, uncertain how to explain the cryptic encounter. For a second, fear coiled in his gut. If what Gavin said was true, if there were bigger players behind the sabotage, maybe that stranger was their messenger. Later, in a quiet hallway backstage, Ethan filled Diane in on the stranger's ominous words. She listened carefully, arms folded across her charcoal blazer. Sounds like intimidation, Diane said. They're testing your reaction, trying to see if you'll scare easily or get paranoid. Ethan scowled. I'm not easily scared, but the last thing I need is more sabotage. We just recovered from the fiasco with Lauren and Gavin. Diane nodded. We can ramp up security protocols. Also, I have a contact in the FBI's white-collar crime division. They might be interested if there's a bigger network targeting you. He hesitated. Involving the feds might add publicity. I'm not sure I want that. Let's see what Gavin has to say first. He claimed he'd gather proof of these shadow investors. Diane pursed her lips. You trust anything that snake says? No. But if he's telling the truth, it could protect us. If he's lying, we'll figure that out soon enough. She sighed. All right, just be cautious. If that stranger is part of a bigger scheme, they won't hesitate to strike harder next time. That evening, a more intimate celebration took place at a downtown rooftop lounge. It was an invitation-only affair for Ethan's closest associates, a chance to toast the successful day without the press breathing down their necks. The lounge, decked out in warm lights and potted greenery, offered a sweeping view of the city skyline, a tapestry of glowing windows under a starless sky. Bailey was there, along with Troy and Diane. Also present were a handful of top executives from Sky Edge. Glasses of champagne clinked, laughter and relief mingled in the air. For many, this was a triumph over adversity. For Ethan, it was a momentary respite from the gnawing dread of what might come next. At one point, Bailey cornered him near the bar. You look tense, she said softly. More than usual. He forced a reassuring grin. I'm fine. Just a lot on my mind. The launch is done, but new threats might be emerging. She frowned. You mean that bigger conspiracy rumor? People keep mentioning it? He nodded, sipping his champagne. I had a direct run-in with some messenger. I think they're testing the waters. Bailey's face darkened. What do you plan to do? He exhaled slowly, gazing across the lounge. Stay vigilant. If they come at me, I'll be ready. She slid an arm around his shoulders in a rare show of sibling affection. You're strong, E. Just promise me you won't do something reckless on your own. He patted her hand gently. Promise. The vow settled between them, though Ethan knew that if push came to shove, he'd do whatever it took to protect his empire, even if it meant going toe-to-toe with a hidden syndicate of vultures. On the night of the launch, Lauren found herself in her lonely apartment again, scrolling through social media posts about Sky Edge's big success. She saw pictures of Ethan smiling with VIPs, read quotes from journalists praising the product. Every image felt like a knife twisting in her gut. She'd once been part of his life, proud to stand at his side. Now, she was an outcast, disgraced. She tried to distract herself by painting something anything but each brushstroke looked meaningless. Her phone buzzed with a message from a number she only faintly recognized, possibly a friend from the art scene. She opened it. Lauren, the board is recommending permanent dismissal. I'm sorry. It was from a colleague at the college. Her final tie to that career was about to be severed. Tears welled up. She closed the text, trembling with regret. In desperation, she typed another message to Ethan. Congrats on your launch. I'm truly sorry I'm not there to celebrate. Please, can we talk soon? She stared at the screen, waiting, but no reply came. Her sorrow twisted into frustration. Damn him. Couldn't he at least talk to me? But then she remembered how thoroughly she had betrayed him. She had no right to demand his time. She sank onto the worn-out couch, burying her face in her hands. For a moment, she found herself missing Gavin, if only as a partner in misery. But he wasn't messaging her either. She was alone, drifting in the wake of her own horrible choices. Past midnight, after the rooftop celebration ended, Ethan returned to his condo alone. The silence inside was deafening. He flipped on a single lamp, noticing an unopened envelope on the coffee table delivered earlier via courier. He opened it, finding divorce papers. He'd known it was coming to this, but seeing the official documents felt like a punch to the gut. He had no illusions of reconciliation, but finalizing the end of a marriage still stung. His phone chimed another text from Lauren. Congrats on your launch, please. Can we talk? Ethan felt a surge of anger flicker through him. Talk about what? He wanted to fling the phone aside, but curiosity, maybe the faintest sliver of pity, nagged at him. Finally, he typed back. Nothing left to say. I'm sending divorce papers. Sign them. He hit send, heart pounding. The finality of that message echoed in the empty living room. He stared at the divorce documents again, recalling the day he'd proposed to her, how excited she was to plan their wedding. Now, it was a lifetime away. Meanwhile, in the same grimy motel, Gavin hunched over his laptop, scanning digital folders with shaky intensity. He'd rummaged through old email threads, text backups, anything that might connect the dots of who financed him behind the scenes. His memory was hazy. He was more of a front man than a record keeper. But he found scraps, vague references to Axis Combine, payments that bypassed normal routes, cryptic code words. He typed up a rough document listing names, partial phone numbers, email addresses. It wasn't ironclad evidence, some might call it a paranoid rant, but it was enough to raise serious questions if turned over to the authorities or the media. If Ethan Granger used these leads, maybe he could uncover a sinister network. As he scrolled, a sudden knock on the motel door made him jump. "Who is it?" he called nervously. Silence. Another knock, more insistent. Heart pounding, Gavin closed his laptop, shoved it under the bed. He approached the door cautiously, footsteps muffled on threadbare carpet. He peered through the peephole. Two men in dark jackets, faces partially obscured. "Mr. Croft," one said in a low voice. "We just want to talk." Fear sliced through him. Loan sharks or something worse? Gavin's mind raced. If they were from the network that bankrolled him, they might want to silence him. If they were from law enforcement, they'd probably identify themselves. He was cornered again. "Go away," he rasped, voice trembling. "I'm armed." A pause. Then the voice chuckled. "We know you're not. Open the door or we'll break it down." Panic soared. Gavin eyed the small window near the bathroom. It was only half size, but maybe he could squeeze out. Another round of knocks hammered the door. He heard wood creak. No time. He bolted for the window, cranked it open, and wriggled through. He fell onto the asphalt outside with a grunt, scraping his hands and knees. A crash behind him indicated they'd forced the door. "Hey!" someone yelled from inside. "He's running!" Gavin scrambled to his feet and took off into the night, adrenaline kicking in. He had no plan, no car, just the raw instinct to flee. Footsteps thundered behind him. If they caught him, he was finished. He didn't know if they'd kill him or drag him somewhere. Either way, it wouldn't end well. He sprinted down a dark alley, pulse roaring in his ears. He turned a corner, nearly slipping on wet pavement. A few blocks ahead, city lights glowed faintly, promising a chance to blend in with the after-hours crowd. He prayed he could vanish among them before these men caught up. In that moment, Gavin cursed the day he decided to tangle with Ethan Granger and the bigger forces that might overshadow them both. Back at his condo, Ethan paced, his mind swirling with half-formed worries. The cryptic threat at the launch, Gavin's potential revelation about bigger conspirators, Lauren's desperate texts, the fresh divorce papers. Sleep felt impossible. Around 2 a.m., he sat at the kitchen island, laptop open, reviewing company security logs. He considered texting Troy, but didn't want to disturb him at this hour. Instead, he jotted a quick email. We need to increase background checks on all new partners. Also, let's plan a meeting to discuss potential threats tied to Gavin's old financiers. He clicked send, shoulders slumping. A beep indicated a new message. He hoped it wasn't from Lauren. Instead, it was from an unknown address. Subject line: The Axis sees you. Ethan's chest tightened. He opened it carefully. The email was short. Stay in your lane, Granger, or watch your empire crumble from within. No signature, no further detail. The word Axis matched Gavin's partial notes. Ethan's pulse pounded. So it's real. They're warning me now. He inhaled, forcing calm. Bring it on, whoever you are. I'm done playing defense. As dawn neared, the city's lights shimmered in the darkness, reflections dancing on the water. Somewhere on those streets, Gavin Croft was running for his life. Lauren was sobbing in a cramped apartment, and a hidden entity known as Axis had begun to show its hand. In the center of it all stood Ethan Granger, betrayed husband, cunning CEO ready to wage a new war to protect himself and everything he'd built. The question lingered in the silent hours. Would he stand victorious again? Or had he just awakened a force more lethal than any personal betrayal? The morning after Ethan received the threatening email from Axis, Bailey arrived at SkyEdge's headquarters early, energized by the success of the product launch yet uneasy about the swirling rumors. She had embraced her new responsibilities, swiftly handling software demo requests, coordinating with marketing, even assisting with data analytics. This morning, she decided to run an extensive background check on recent prospective partners, spurred by Ethan's late-night email about increased vigilance. Sitting at her modest desk, she tapped into a database that cross-referenced potential investors with public financial records. Her heart lurched when she noticed an anomaly. One investor from overseas, a shell corporation with no transparent ownership. They'd approached SkyEdge with a vague proposal for collaboration on encrypted data storage. The contact name was evidently fake, and the phone numbers traced to disposable burners. Bailey's fingertips tingled. This matched the pattern of shady infiltration. She compiled the data into a folder, labeling it Suspicious Axis. Then she rushed to Ethan's office. On the elevator ride up, she rehearsed how to present it calmly, ignoring the dread in her stomach. When she reached his office, Ethan was scanning more security logs, eyes bloodshot. "What's up?" he muttered, beckoning her in. Bailey explained the Shell Corporation's suspicious approach, concluding with, "I think they're fishing for inside access to our new encryption, maybe to sabotage or replicate it. The style is eerily reminiscent of what Gavin might have used." Ethan leaned back in his chair, tension carving lines in his face. Could be connected to the Axis group, or maybe just another unscrupulous entity. Either way, this is not a coincidence. Bailey nodded, biting her lip. "What do we do?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "We keep them talking, gather more intel. If they're part of Axis, maybe we can bait them into revealing themselves." A flicker of determination gleamed in his eyes. "I won't let them blindside me." Soon after, Troy arrived, summoned by Ethan's urgent text. They convened in a smaller conference room, locked down for privacy. Bailey joined them, along with Diane dialed in via video call from a separate location, citing security concerns. The atmosphere hummed with tension. Troy glanced at the compiled data. "Definitely shady. You want me to do a deeper dig?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. Focus on any link to that Axis Combine or the people behind Gavin. We need names, addresses, anything that can help us anticipate their next move." Diane's voice crackled through the speaker. "I'll contact my federal connections discreetly. But be aware, once we involve the FBI, we lose some control of the narrative." Ethan exhaled, arms crossed. "I understand. But if Axis is more than a rumor, we might need big guns to help." Troy shot Ethan a grave look. "Agreed. Also about Gavin, there's no sign of him at his motel. The owner said some guys busted in and Gavin fled out the window. He's in the wind, possibly in danger." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "Wonderful. If he's on the run, we can't get that evidence he promised." Bailey hesitated. He might still reach out, if only to save himself. Ethan nodded grimly. Or he might be too busy staying alive. Either way, we keep forging ahead. Let's show Axis that we're not an easy target. While Ethan mapped out strategies for dealing with Axis, Lauren mustered the courage to approach Diane's law office unannounced. She'd decided it was time to face the legal ramifications head and anything to avoid a total meltdown. Sitting in the sleek waiting area, she twisted her fingers nervously until Diane emerged from behind a frosted glass door. "Lauren?" Diane said, brow arched in surprise. "Did we have an appointment?" Lauren stood, swallowing her nerves. "No, but I need to talk. About the charges. And about Ethan." Diane's professional demeanor remained cool. "All right, let's step into a conference room." Once inside a small, minimalist space, Lauren sank into a chair, feeling the weight of Diane's sharp gaze. She forced herself to speak evenly. I want to cooperate with the DA. I'll testify about Gavin's involvement, my part in the theft. I'm guilty, I know, but I was manipulated and Diane raised a hand. "Slow down. I'm not your attorney. I represent Ethan's interests." Lauren squeezed her eyes shut. "I realize that, but there's no one else I trust to at least convey my willingness to fix this to him. If we go to trial, everything gets worse." Diane studied her a moment, silent. Finally, she said, "Lauren, you do need your own lawyer. If you plan to testify against Gavin, that's between you, your counsel, and the DA. As for Ethan, he's filed for divorce. I have the papers ready. Are you prepared to sign?" Lauren's throat tightened. The finality of it stung. "If that's what Ethan wants, yes. But please, can you just tell him I'm not out to harm him anymore? I'd help if he needs me to testify about bigger conspirators. Gavin bragged about them at times, said they were unstoppable." That piqued Diane's interest. "Do you recall any names or references?" Lauren rubbed her temples. "He mentioned something like A Collective or Axis. I brushed it off then. Now I realize it might be real." Diane's face remained inscrutable. "I'll pass the information along, but no promises. Ethan is not exactly open to hearing from you." Lauren forced a nod, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. She fumbled in her purse for a pen. "Just give me the divorce papers. I'll sign." Later that day, Diane phoned Ethan. "She came in to see me," she said without preamble. "Lauren?" Ethan guessed, ignoring the pang in his chest. "Yes, she's apparently willing to testify against Gavin. Mentioned hearing about Axis from him. Also, she signed the divorce documents on the spot." Ethan's breath caught, though he wasn't sure why. This was what he wanted, right? "Okay," he managed. "That's good." Diane's tone softened fractionally. She seemed genuinely contrite and anxious to avoid prison. She's obviously hoping for leniency. "Leniency," Ethan murmured, bitterness creeping in. He let the silence stretch, images flooding his mind, Lauren's tearful face at the gala, the way she used to glow when she talked about art. He cleared his throat. "Right. Let the DA handle that. If her testimony helps, so be it. Doesn't change the betrayal." "Understood," Diane replied. "I'll keep you updated." As he ended the call, Ethan stared at his phone, torn between relief that the divorce was progressing and a hollow sadness that it was truly over. The rational side told him to let it go, but the emotional side yearned for a different ending. Meanwhile, news outlets began to pick up threads of the Axis rumor. Tech Insider's Hillary Rain published a speculative article. "Beyond the Betrayal is a secret syndicate targeting Granger's tech empire." Though the piece lacked concrete evidence, it fueled public curiosity. Social media buzzed with theories about shadowy groups controlling the tech sector. SkyEdge's phone lines rang off the hook with inquiries. Some were from legitimate reporters, others from conspiracy nuts. Ethan directed the PR team to keep the official stance. "We're focused on delivering innovative solutions. We have no comment on speculative conspiracy theories." Yet privately, Ethan felt the tension mounting. A threat had emerged from the shadows, and ignoring it wouldn't make it vanish. 3 days after Gavin fled the motel, Ethan sat in his office, going through daily tasks, when his phone chimed with an unknown number. He answered warily, half expecting more threats. "Ethan, it's me," came Gavin's ragged voice. Ethan tensed. "Croft?" A shaky exhale. "Yeah. Listen, I'm in trouble. Serious trouble. I tried to gather that info for you Axis's deeper involvement, but they're on to me. They sent guys to either kill me or drag me into some dark hole. I barely escaped. Ethan's anger flared. You reap what you sow, Gavin. Why are you calling me? Because I still have the evidence you want. I salvaged it from my laptop before they cornered me. Bank accounts, coded transactions, people who shield themselves behind dummy corporations. If you help me, I'll hand it all over. Ethan's mind spun. This could be the break he needed to confirm Axis's existence, but trusting Gavin? That was insane. How exactly am I supposed to help you? Give me safe harbor, money to lay low, or help me get witness protection, I don't care. Just something so I'm not gunned down in the street. Ethan clenched his fist. Why on earth would I lift a finger for you after everything you did? Because they're bigger than me, bigger than you. If Axis sets its sights on your company, you'll want these documents. You want to protect yourself, right? Gavin's voice shook with desperation. I'll do whatever you ask, testify. Sign affidavits, just don't abandon me to them. Ethan closed his eyes, a war raging inside. He loathed Gavin, but the possibility of a trove of Axis intel was too tempting, and perhaps this was the only chance to blow the lid off that group. Fine, he said tightly. I'll consider it. Send me a sample of what you've got. If it's legit, we'll discuss next steps. No promises. Gavin let out a trembling sigh. I'll email something to you from a secure account in an hour. Please don't hang me out to dry, Granger. As the call ended, Ethan felt a surge of conflicting emotions. He wanted to see Gavin rotting in a cell, but he also recognized that if Axis was truly menacing, he needed any advantage he could get. That same evening, Ethan was clearing out emails when he spotted another new message from a cryptic sender. Matrix Protector at darkmail.org. The subject line read, Let's negotiate. He opened it warily. The email said, Mr. Granger, we understand Gavin Croft reached out to you. We strongly advise you not to assist him. He's a liability to us and to you. If you remain neutral, we can offer you strategic alliances with entities that will strengthen your market position. Resist us, and we'll consider you an adversary. Your call. Ethan's blood pounded. So this was Axis, or someone from that group directly addressing him. They were basically saying, abandon Gavin or face destruction. He stared at the screen, a slow, cold anger taking root. They dare to threaten me in my own digital space? He typed a brief reply. Leave me alone. I have no interest in alliances with criminals. Then he hit send, heart hammering. He half expected a near-instant backlash, but no immediate response came. Late that night, Ethan, Bailey, Troy, and Diane met in Ethan's condo to discuss the swirling threats. They huddled in the living room, tension crackling in the air. Troy had a laptop open, combing through new intel. Diane sipped coffee, posture rigid. Bailey sat close to Ethan, bracing herself for more bad news. So, Axis basically threatened you if you help Gavin, Diane summarized. They offered bribes if you stay out of their way. Ethan nodded, jaw tight. I told them to shove it. I'm not caving. Troy scrolled on his laptop. I found some references to an Axis combine in older FBI bulletins, apparently a loose network of investors, bankers, ex-spies, you name it. They move money around shady deals, toppling or buying out companies for profit or power. They rarely show themselves. The fact they contacted you openly is unusual. Bailey's voice trembled with quiet fury. They must feel threatened by how you exposed Gavin. Maybe they worry you'll do the same to them. Ethan leaned forward, eyes glinting. Let them worry. I want to blow them out of the water. If we can gather enough evidence, we can break their secrecy. Federal charges, public exposure. Diane tapped her fingernails on the coffee table. That's risky. They're powerful. If you push too hard, they might strike maybe not physically, but financially. They could sabotage your supply chains, hack your systems, bribe your top staff. A heavy silence followed. Ethan exhaled slowly. I won't cower, but we do need a plan. Let's see what Gavin sends. If it's legit, we turn that over to the authorities quietly. Maybe we can coordinate a sting operation or something. Troy nodded, but his eyes were grave. And if Axis retaliates, be ready for anything. Ethan gazed at each of them, his loyal circle. This is bigger than a cheating scandal now. It was a war for control, a collision of ambition and secrecy. He squared his shoulders, determined. We stand firm. An hour after midnight, Ethan received an encrypted email from Gavin's secure account. Attached was a compressed folder. He extracted it carefully, scanning for malware. Inside were half a dozen PDFs, spreadsheets of suspicious wire transfers, lists of shell corporations, cryptic references to code names. Some matched the shell corporation Bailey found that morning. A separate text file explained how Gavin was introduced to them by an intermediary who believed in his talent for infiltration. The documents weren't absolute proof, some data was redacted or incomplete, but it was more than enough to raise alarm bells. Ethan forwarded the files to Troy and Diane with a note. Looks real. Next step? Then he sank back into his chair, fatigue pressing on him. The personal betrayal by Lauren was overshadowed by this monstrous new threat. In a twisted way, he almost missed the simpler days when his only worry was a two-timing spouse. In the pre-dawn hush, Ethan stared at the flickering city lights outside his condo windows. Axis was out there, pulling strings in the shadows, capable of snuffing out threats or co-opting them into alliances of convenience. Now, thanks to Gavin's frantic attempt at self-preservation, Ethan possessed a dangerous trove of partial evidence. The storm was gathering, and the next move could define not just his company's fate, but the very soul of a man who refused to be anyone's pawn. I beat one betrayal. I can handle another. But how far am I willing to go? The next days were a tense waiting game for Ethan. He had the partial Axis files from Gavin. He'd rebuffed Axis's attempt to recruit him, and he was continuing to run Sky Edge as if no invisible sword dangled above. But the stress coiled inside him, threatening to unravel. The city carried on, oblivious to the hidden battle being waged in sleek corporate offices and dimly lit corners. Early Monday morning, Ethan received a call from Diane. I've looped in a contact from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They're intrigued by the data you and Gavin provided. They want a meeting, off the record, to decide if it's worth a formal investigation. Ethan's gut twisted at the idea of bringing in federal agents. The potential for leaks, or for the investigation to spiral out of his control, was high. Yet he saw no alternative. Set it up, he told Diane. The covert meeting took place in a nondescript government building off Pike Street. Ethan, Diane, and Troy sat across from two agents, Special Agent Harding, a wiry man with piercing eyes, and Agent Morales, a woman who exuded calm authority. They pored over Gavin's documents, occasionally exchanging curt nods. This is substantial, Harding finally said, tapping a printed spreadsheet. But it's incomplete. If your source can fill in the blanks, we might link these shell core to known Axis operators. Morales leaned forward, eyes on Ethan. We've heard of Axis Combine, but we've never had enough to pin them down. If you help us, Mr. Granger, we can open a formal inquiry. However, it will be lengthy, and we can't guarantee your anonymity. Ethan steeled himself. I understand. Do what you must. I just want them exposed and neutralized. Agent Morales nodded. We'll handle it carefully. But be aware. If they catch wind of an FBI probe, they may strike at you with everything they have. Ethan's expression hardened. Let them try. While Ethan navigated the FBI negotiations, Bailey continued her duties at Sky Edge. One afternoon, she left the building for a quick coffee run at the cafe across the street. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb, forcing her to jump back. The passenger window rolled down, revealing a man in sunglasses who stared at her intently, lips curling in a half-smirk. Then the SUV sped off. Heart hammering, Bailey glanced around, seeing only a few startled pedestrians. That wasn't random, she thought. They were sending a message. She rushed back inside, anxiety rolling through her. If Axis was trying to intimidate her now, it meant the entire Granger family was in their crosshairs. She reported it to building security, who took statements and checked outside cameras. The plates on the SUV were stolen. No leads. Bailey's sense of dread intensified. We're all targets now. She texted Ethan, succinctly detailing what happened. Be careful, she added at the end. That evening, back at his condo, Ethan read Bailey's text about the SUV incident and felt a cold fury. He called her immediately. You okay? She sounded shaken but steady. Yeah, just freaked out. They didn't physically touch me, but it was definitely a message. Ethan clenched the phone. I'll assign additional security detail to you. This is going too far. Bailey sighed. I don't want to live in fear, E, but thank you. After the call, Ethan paced his living room, thinking of all the lines these people were willing to cross. It reminded him of how helpless he'd felt discovering Lauren's betrayal. But this time, he had to be strong not just for himself, but for Bailey, the company, everyone who believed in him. A pang of guilt also nudged him. Am I partially responsible for painting a target on Bailey's back? If I'd just bowed to Axis, no. I can't do that. That's not who I am. 2 days later, a surprising call came from none other than Lauren. Ethan considered letting it ring out, but something in him compelled him to answer. Her voice sounded subdued, but she wasn't crying this time. I know you want nothing to do with me, she began softly, but I need to warn you someone from Axis contacted me. They said if I keep my mouth shut about Gavin and what I overheard, they'll help me avoid jail. Ethan's spine stiffened. And what did you tell them? That I can't help them, Lauren said, an edge of fear creeping into her tone. I'm cooperating with the DA in hopes of a plea deal. I just thought you should know they're reaching out to your enemies or potential weak links to keep your circle quiet. A swirl of emotions churned in Ethan's chest. He never expected Lauren to show any loyalty after everything that happened. Still, maybe this was her attempt at redemption. Thanks for letting me know. Be careful, they don't play nice. Lauren hesitated. I am sorry. For everything. I signed the papers. I guess that means we're done. He closed his eyes, ignoring the sudden sting behind them. Yeah, he said quietly. We are. But thank you for the heads-up. They disconnected. Ethan exhaled shakily. The final ring of the word done echoed in his head. Another piece of his old life gone. Despite the pain, he appreciated that she'd warned him. He was determined not to let Axis leverage her or anyone else to bring him down. Troy spent late nights cross-checking Gavin's partial data with open-source records, calling in favors from old detective colleagues. Slowly, a mosaic formed. Axis spanned continents, funneling money through offshore accounts. They specialized in identifying lucrative targets, then undermining them from within if they refused a buyout. Gavin had been their stooge to get a foothold in SkyEdge's encryption. When that failed, they turned hostile. One name surfaced repeatedly in the background. Ernesto Ramirez, an elusive financier rumored to have ties in multiple countries, bridging legitimate banks and black market funds. He might be a top rung of Axis, or simply a major link in their chain. If the FBI could pin him, they might unravel half the network. Troy told Ethan, Ramirez is rarely seen in public, but there's talk he'll appear at an international finance summit in Vancouver next week. Might be a chance for a confrontation. Ethan mulled it over. A confrontation with a ghost? Or you suggesting I go after him face to face? Troy shrugged. Stranger ideas have worked. You want to fight them. Sometimes you have to step into their arena. Ethan nodded slowly, a plan forming. All right, keep me posted on that summit. Maybe we can glean something. Late one night, Ethan's phone buzzed with a short text from Gavin. I'm in Seattle again, at an abandoned warehouse near the docks. I can't run anymore. If you want the rest of my data, come now. Axis is on my tail. Dread pooled in Ethan's stomach. This felt like a trap. But if it was real, ignoring it might mean losing the last chunk of crucial evidence or letting Gavin get murdered on the waterfront. Ethan weighed the options, then phoned Troy. Within minutes, they rallied, deciding on a plan. Ethan would go, Troy would shadow him from a distance, armed. They also alerted the FBI agents, who said they'd arrive as backup but might not make it in time. The warehouse sat under the glare of moonlight and flickering street lamps. Rusted metal doors, broken windows, a strong stench of brine from the harbor. Ethan parked a block away, slipping inside carefully. The interior was a maze of old crates, puddles of stagnant water. In the corner, a dim light glowed a cheap lantern set on a crate. Gavin stood beside it, face gaunt and haunted. You came, Gavin rasped, relief warring with fear in his eyes. Ethan stepped closer, scanning the shadows. Where's the rest of your data? Gavin patted a worn backpack slung over his shoulder. Right here. I can give it to you now, but please, help me. I can't keep running. Ethan's gut churned with contempt and pity. Before he could respond, a sudden clang echoed from behind. Both men spun, adrenaline spiking. Silhouettes emerged from the darkness, figures in dark clothing, likely armed. "Put it down, Croft," one voice snarled. "No one leaves here with that backpack." Ethan's mind raced. Axis operatives. He dropped to a crouch behind a crate, yanking Gavin with him. The shadowy figures fanned out, flashlights slicing the gloom. In the hush, Ethan heard steps behind them. "We're surrounded." He whispered to Gavin, "Stay low, give me the bag." Gavin's hand trembled as he passed the backpack over. Another voice from the darkness. "Granger, you don't want to die for this. Hand it over. We'll let you walk away." Ethan's blood boiled. "You killed your leverage the moment you threatened me." He prayed Troy was in position, possibly with eyes on the group. Where were the FBI agents? A shot rang out, ricocheting off metal. Ethan ducked, heart hammering. "Gavin, run if you can," he hissed. But Gavin just shook his head, terror freezing him. Another shot, this time from a vantage to their left. A suppressed muzzle flash in the darkness. Then a body collapsed a grunt. Maybe Troy picked one off. Chaos erupted, the intruders yelling orders, returning fire at some unseen sniper. Ethan seized the moment, half-dragging Gavin behind a row of crates. He spotted a back door partly jammed. "Come on!" he urged. They sprinted across the open floor as bullets sparked overhead. Gavin stumbled, letting out a cry. Ethan yanked him upright, adrenaline surging. Reaching the door, they shoved debris aside. Fresh air and the harbor's pungent smell greeted them. Another alley lit by a flickering lamp. A black SUV screeched around the corner, headlights blazing. Ethan's stomach lurched. Axis or Troy? The passenger window rolled down. Muzzle flashes spat. Gavin cried out, grabbing his shoulder as blood spurted. Ethan ducked, dragging Gavin behind a dumpster. Then, from somewhere behind them, an engine roared, and a second vehicle slammed into the SUV, ramming it sideways. Glass shattered. Shouts echoed. Ethan glimpsed Troy behind the wheel, face set in grim determination. He'd commandeered a car to intercept. The men in the SUV scrambled, exchanging gunfire with Troy, who hunkered low behind the driver's door, returning shots with a handgun. Ethan pressed a hand to Gavin's wounded shoulder. "Stay with me!" He rummaged in the backpack, quickly extracting a USB stick. This must be the data. Then he grabbed Gavin under the arm, hauling him further from the crossfire. At that crucial moment, multiple sirens wailed. A flurry of blue and red lights bathed the warehouse exterior. Several FBI vehicles and local police descended, agents and officers pouring out, weapons raised. Axis gunmen realized they were outnumbered, scattering in different directions. Some vanished into the night, others pinned down. Troy shouted an, "Over here!" to the feds, pointing at the wounded Gavin and Ethan behind the dumpster. Two agents rushed over, providing cover. Another group engaged the Axis operatives in a shootout near the battered SUV. Within minutes, gunfire died down. The area swarmed with law enforcement, arresting those who hadn't escaped. Ethan crouched beside Gavin, who panted weakly, blood soaking his sleeve. "You'll be okay," Ethan muttered, though he wasn't sure. An FBI medic hurried over, starting first aid. Gavin's eyes fluttered open, meeting Ethan's. "Don't let them bury that data," he wheezed. "Expose them for me, for yourself." Then he lost consciousness. An hour later, the chaos settled to a grim hush. Ambulances carted away injured men, some from Axis, some unidentified. Gavin was among them, alive but in serious condition. The FBI roped off the entire block, turning it into a massive crime scene. Forensic teams combed the warehouse, collecting bullets, fingerprints, anything to unravel Axis's infiltration. Troy gave a statement to the lead agent, explaining how he'd tailed Ethan as backup. Ethan stood by a police cruiser, wrapped in a foil blanket, physically unhurt but mentally shaken. He clenched the USB stick in his pocket, the final piece of Gavin's trove. Agent Harding approached, an approving nod. "That was risky, but you and your friend helped us corner a major Axis cell. We found illegally modified weapons, equipment. That's big." Ethan's voice felt scratchy. "Any sign of Ernesto Ramirez?" Harding shook his head. "No, the ones we arrested won't talk yet, but we'll keep digging. You might have just launched a major crackdown, Mr. Granger." We owe you. He said nothing, mind swirling. The cost had been high, people injured. Gavin nearly killed. Now the feds had partial victory, but the war wasn't done. The specter of a larger Axis network remained. As dawn approached, Ethan gazed at the battered SUV, the bullet-riddled warehouse, the swirl of flashing lights. He felt a grim satisfaction that he'd fought back and survived. But the confrontation with Axis had escalated beyond anything he initially imagined. Cheating wife, shady investor, corporate sabotage, those were just prologue. Now, he stood at the crossroads of a deeper conspiracy, with the FBI as uneasy allies. The next moves would determine not only his personal redemption, but the fate of a powerful criminal web. And in the quiet recesses of his mind, Ethan wondered, how far is he willing to go? And at what price to his soul? Seattle's early morning skyline glowed with a faint purple hue, the city still shaking off the remnants of night. For Ethan Granger, the last few days had passed in a blur of adrenaline. The shootout at the warehouse near the docks, Gavin's gunshot wound, the subsequent FBI takedown of an Axis cell, it all felt surreal, like a half-remembered nightmare. But it was real, and the repercussions were cascading through Ethan's life with the unstoppable force of an avalanche. The day after the warehouse firefight, Gavin Croft lay in a hospital bed under armed guard, recovering from surgery. A bullet had torn through his shoulder, fracturing bone and severing muscle tissue. Doctors managed to save him from permanent disability, though his arm would require months of rehab if he lived that long. Ethan had no desire to stand by Gavin's bedside. He hated the man, but the FBI insisted Ethan be available to confirm details about the evidence Gavin surrendered. So that morning, Ethan found himself stepping through the sterile hospital corridors, flanked by an FBI agent named Morales, the same agent who had perused Gavin's financial files. "Room 314, Morales said, checking a note on her phone. "Ready?" Ethan nodded curtly, though his insides churned. The door to the room was partially open, revealing Gavin's still form, heavily bandaged. A second agent stood guard just outside, nodding to Morales. Inside, a nurse finished checking monitors, then slipped out quietly. "Let's get this over with," Ethan murmured. They entered. Gavin's eyes flicked open, watery and bloodshot, ringed with exhaustion. Seeing Ethan, he flinched, as if expecting a barrage of venom. Instead, Ethan stayed silent, crossing his arms. Morales stepped forward. "Mr. Croft, how are you feeling?" Gavin let out a humorless laugh, voice raspy. "Like I got shot. Thanks for asking." Morales eyed the IV drip. "Doctors say you'll recover physically. Legally, that depends on how cooperative you remain. So far, we have your partial statements about Axis's shell corporations. We need more." Gavin swallowed, gaze shifting to Ethan. "You saw what they're capable of, Granger. They won't stop. That warehouse assault was just one cell. Ramirez is still out there, plus others who want me dead. I can't defend myself from this hospital bed." Ethan forced down his revulsion and pity. "You want protection? Then give the FBI everything. No half measures. All your knowledge, your connections, your logs, everything." A flicker of frustration crossed Gavin's face. "I told you, some of its guesswork Axis keeps their people compartmentalized, but I have enough leads to keep the feds busy for years." Morales nodded, her stance firm. "Then we'll start with what you do have. Once we corroborate it, we can petition for witness protection. Until then, you remain under guard, subject to our terms." Gavin looked at Ethan, a hint of desperation in his eyes. "What about you, Granger? If I help bury Axis, will you, I don't know, help me with my legal troubles?" Ethan exhaled a slow breath. "I'm not the DA, but if your intel is crucial, I'll make a statement that your cooperation helped. That's the best I can do. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because Axis is a threat to me, and to a lot of others." Gavin's eyes fluttered closed. "Fine. Let's just pray I live long enough to testify." The tension in the room was suffocating. Morales signaled that the interview was over for now. Gavin's face twisted in pain as he tried to shift his weight, wincing sharply. Ethan turned, stepping out of the room. In the hallway, he paused, letting the wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. Hatred for Gavin, grudging gratitude for the intel, fear of Axis. and a tiny spark of satisfaction that, at least, he was on the brink of exposing them. Outside the hospital, Seattle bustled with its usual energy people scurrying to work, traffic humming. Yet a sense of foreboding clung to Ethan. The last few weeks had dismantled his personal life and drawn him into a sprawling conspiracy he never asked to confront. He wondered fleetingly about Lauren. Was she hearing the news of the warehouse raid? Did she even care that Gavin nearly died? He slid into the back seat of a black sedan driven by a discreet bodyguard. Diane had insisted on 24-hour security after the dockside shootout, which Ethan grudgingly accepted. This new detail reminded him that Axis wasn't just a phantom. They had real operatives who nearly killed him. He refused to let them blindside him again. Sky Edge Innovations was the next stop. As he arrived, he caught glimpses of employees glancing his way with a mixture of awe and apprehension, like they were working for a CEO who led a double life as some avenging vigilante. Rumors circulated about the CEO who survived a gun battle. He supposed it might be good for business fearless leadership and all, but inside, it only added to his fatigue. Within minutes of arriving at his office, Bailey appeared in the doorway, an anxious look on her face. She said softly. You have a second? He set aside a stack of documents about new encryption pilot programs. Sure, come in. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her, crossing her arms. How are you? After last night's chaos? Ethan rubbed his temples. Exhausted, but we're moving forward. I saw Gavin in the hospital. He's stable enough to continue cooperating, apparently. Bailey grimaced. Can you believe that scumbag is still alive after everything? Ethan's stare dropped to the desk. Part of me wishes he'd vanish, but his intel might be critical. If it stops Axis, it's worth it. Bailey nodded slowly. Then she stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. And Lauren? Have you heard from her again? Ethan's jaw tightened. She texted me a few days ago to say Axis tried to bribe her into staying quiet. She refused. That's all. A swirl of emotions crossed Bailey's face. Anger, pity, protectiveness. After everything she did, at least she's not siding with them. Ethan couldn't ignore the dull ache that mention of Lauren triggered. Yeah, doesn't change the betrayal, but maybe it's a start toward her own redemption. Bailey squeezed his shoulder gently. I just want you to be okay. You've been carrying so much. Don't let it eat you alive, big bro. He offered a weary half-smile. Thanks, Bales. I'll keep that in mind. Later that afternoon, Diane joined Ethan in a secure meeting with Agents Harding and Morales, discussing the next steps for the Axis investigation. They convened at a confidential FBI safe house, an unremarkable suburban home used for covert briefings. Inside a modest living room, walls bare of decoration, a laptop on a folding table displayed a digital map dotted with pushpin markers. Agent Harding gestured at the screen. These pins represent known or suspected Axis transactions correlated with Croft's data. Notice the cluster across the West Coast: San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver. This corridor is where they launder money from tech acquisitions. Morales cleared her throat. Our main target is Ernesto Ramirez, believed to be a senior figure in the Combine. He's slippery. We have a faint lead that he might attend a private finance summit in Vancouver next week. If we can get eyes on him or catch him in a sting, we can squeeze out more of the network. Ethan absorbed the intel, arms crossed. And my role? We need you to be our inside man, Harding said, eyebrows raised. You're a high-profile CEO. The finance summit is invitingly. You might receive or can obtain an invitation. Once you're there, we set up a covert operation to capture evidence if Ramirez tries to approach you or do anything suspicious. Diane bristled. That's extremely risky. You're asking Ethan to act as bait. Axis nearly killed him. Another attempt might succeed this time. Harding nodded soberly. We understand the risk, but we also know Axis is fixated on controlling or destroying Granger's encryption breakthroughs. He's the best lure we have. We'll surround him with discreet federal backup. Ethan considered it, heart pounding. If it helps shut them down for good, I'm in. But I want to ensure my sister Bailey is protected while I'm away. Morales agreed. We'll allocate protective detail for her. We can't guarantee zero risk, but we'll do our best. The rest is up to you. Diane shot Ethan a worried look. You sure you want to do this? He met her eyes, remembering the warehouse bullets, the betrayal, the ominous email from Axis. This ends now. I won't live under their shadow any longer. Over the following days, Ethan juggled his CEO duties with covert planning for the Vancouver summit. He maintained a facade of normalcy at Sky Edge, overseeing new client demos, discussing product expansions. In the background, he studied the summit's guest list, which included top bankers, private equity gurus, and foreign financiers. He used his connections to secure an invitation. Officially, he'd be there to talk about encryption solutions. Unofficially, the FBI prepped him on how to watch for suspicious approaches. Troy hovered in the background, providing logistical support. He had allies in Canadian law enforcement who could quietly help with security. Meanwhile, Bailey pressed for updates. Ethan tried not to alarm her, reassuring her that FBI protection would keep her safe. Inside, he worried that if Axis grew desperate, they could strike at her or even Lauren. He told himself it was for the greater good. If he dismantled Axis, or at least crippled them, no one else would face the betrayals and sabotage that had nearly destroyed him. I'm turning the tables, he reminded himself. I'm not just the betrayed husband. I'm the one who fights back. While Ethan prepared for the summit, Lauren faced her own reckoning. The DA offered her a plea deal, minimal jail time if she provided full testimony against Gavin's crimes, and if the Axis case went to trial. She'd be on probation afterward. It was better than a lengthy sentence. Still, the notion of wearing an orange jumpsuit even briefly terrified her. But she had no illusions she had stolen from Ethan, conspired to leak data. She was guilty. She signed the plea agreement in a sterile conference room, her new lawyer by her side. The lawyer gave her a tight-lipped nod. This is your best option. Once you've served the short sentence, you can attempt to rebuild your life. Lauren's stomach churned. Rebuild what life? She had no job, no husband, no money. She'd burned every bridge. But she'd made this bed, and it was time to lie in it. After signing, she stepped outside to the building's lobby, phone in hand. Impulsively, she texted Ethan, I'm taking the plea deal. I'll testify. I just wanted to say, I hope you find peace. I'm truly sorry. A few minutes passed with no reply. She left the courthouse, feeling the hush of finality settle over her heart. The day arrived. Ethan flew to Vancouver under the guise of attending the finance summit, accompanied by a small entourage. Among them were 2 FBI agents posing as corporate associates Agent Harding and a younger agent named Song. Troy traveled separately but planned to coordinate on-site with Canadian law enforcement. The plan was simple. If Ernesto Ramirez or any Axis figure tried to corner Ethan, they'd quietly monitor and record the exchange. Then the feds would swoop in, hopefully capturing a bigger fish than the local Seattle cell they'd already busted. The summit took place at the opulent Pacific Skyline Hotel, perched near the waterfront with sweeping views of the bay. The building boasted mirrored exteriors, plush carpets, and a lobby filled with the aroma of fresh flowers and high-end cologne. Attendees wore designer suits, expensive jewelry, the trappings of wealth from around the globe. Ethan checked in with minimal luggage, ignoring the sideways glances from other CEOs who recognized him from the sensational headlines. He forced a polite smile here, a nod there, feigning normalcy. Inside, anxiety gnawed at him. Which face in this crowd belongs to an Axis operative? That evening, a welcome reception sprawled across the hotel's grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers glimmered, waiters in tuxedos glided with silver trays of champagne flutes, and a string quartet provided subdued music in the corner. Ethan circled the perimeter, exchanging polite greetings, eyes scanning for any sign of Ernesto Ramirez. Suddenly, a woman approached, tall, raven-haired, wearing a sleek black gown. She introduced herself as Simone, an independent venture capitalist from Switzerland. Her accent was smooth, her smile confident. She asked pointed questions about Ethan's encryption technology, praising his resilience after the so-called family scandal. Must be difficult, Simone purred, balancing personal turmoil with corporate success. I admire your fortitude. Ethan sensed a hidden edge to her words. Was she fishing for vulnerabilities or genuinely complimenting him? He replied with carefully measured phrases about focusing on the future. She pressed for a private meeting to discuss potential investment synergies. A subtle wave from Agent Harding, standing across the ballroom with a whiskey in hand, confirmed his suspicion. Simone could be an Axis contact or an affiliated party. Ethan politely agreed to meet the next day, but excused himself quickly. The chase had begun. The following afternoon, amid the summit's panel discussions, Ethan slipped away to a reserved conference suite where he'd arranged to meet Simone. The FBI had wired him with a hidden microphone. If Simone revealed Axis links or threatened blackmail, they'd record every word. Simone arrived in a chic business suit, offering a professional handshake. No one else was present. Agent Harding and Agent Song listened from an adjacent room through the surveillance feed. "Mr. Granger," Simone said, settling into a chair, crossing her legs elegantly. "You're quite the topic this year. Some see you as a heroic figure, surviving sabotage. Others worry you attract dangerous enemies." Ethan forced a casual chuckle. "I prefer to think it highlights the importance of robust security." "Indeed." She slid a folder across the table. "My investors want to partner with your encryption. We can open markets in Europe, Asia, but we also want certain privileges like early access to code or an exclusivity window." He studied the folder. "And who exactly are these investors?" She offered a vague smile. "International consortiums, discreet. They prefer not to advertise their involvement." Ethan's heart hammered, classic Axis style. "I see," he said, flipping through the file. "Generous capital offers, but requiring deep insight into my IP. That's more than a typical licensing deal." Her gaze didn't waver. "We both know your recent troubles. Let's call them what they are. Axis has tested you. You can choose to fight them or join them. My backers are prepared to ensure you never face sabotage again. In fact, they'd protect you from future threats." Ethan felt a chill. So she's their messenger, trying to recruit me outright. He leaned back, feigning interest. "And if I refuse?" Simone's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Let's not dwell on that. You've seen how swiftly misfortunes can befall your operations. We'd hate for that to continue." His temper flared. "They think they can corner me with fear." But he kept calm. "Give me time to consider. I don't make decisions lightly." She nodded, standing. "Of course. But don't wait too long. Opportunities have a habit of expiring." With that, she left, heels clicking on the polished floor. The moment the door closed, Ethan exhaled shakily. Over his concealed mic, Agent Harding's voice crackled quietly. "Got it all. She basically threatened you. Good job, Ethan." Ethan picked up the folder Simone left, mind racing. Inside, he glimpsed references to Ramirez Holdings, further proof of Axis's chain of command. This was the evidence the FBI needed Axis's direct attempt to blackmail him into compliance. They fell right into the trap. As the summit's day turned to evening, Ethan stood by a panoramic window overlooking Vancouver's harbor. A swirl of conflicting emotions churned in him. Satisfaction at capturing Axis's approach on tape, dread at how they might retaliate if they discovered his sting. He recalled the image of Simone's poised smile, the sly threat behind it. He thought of Lauren's remorse, Gavin's bullet wound, Bailey's near miss with the SUV. All pieces of a puzzle called Axis. "I'm in too deep to back out now," he told himself, gripping the folder tighter. "One way or another, I'll see this through, even if it means stepping into the darkest corners of the global power game." The future loomed uncertain, but Ethan Granger had never been one to back down from a fight. Early the next morning, Ethan convened with Agents Harding and Song in a discreet hotel suite near the top floor, away from prying eyes. Curtains drawn, minimal overhead lighting, the air thick with tension. They reviewed the audio from the previous day's meeting with Simone. Her words formed a clear pattern of extortion. "Accept Axis's alliance or risk more sabotage." Harding folded his arms. "This is gold. We can use it to pressure Simone into revealing more about Ramirez, or at least the location of an upcoming Axis gathering, but we need a strategy." Ethan rubbed his temples, exhaustion weighing on him. "She wants me to give an answer soon. If I stall, they might suspect we're onto them." Song, the younger agent, spoke up. "Maybe let them think you're leaning toward accepting. That might prompt them to arrange a direct meeting with Ramirez. We can intercept him or record more damning evidence. Ethan's mind drifted to the near-death experiences he'd already faced. Yet ironically, stepping even deeper into the trap might be the only way to uproot Axis. So, you want me to pretend I'm on board? Harding nodded. Yes, but let's be extremely careful. We can't blow this operation. We need that top-level proof to get global authorities behind the crackdown. Diane, who'd flown to Vancouver that morning, listened via speakerphone. Ethan, are you sure? This is even more dangerous than the warehouse. You'll be letting these criminals think you're complicit. He glanced at Agent Song and Harding, each wearing solemn expressions. I'll do it, he said quietly. What's the next step? Harding let out a breath. We orchestrate a follow-up with Simone. You express interest, but say you want a face-to-face with her investors, or at least with Ernesto Ramirez. We coordinate hidden surveillance. Meanwhile, the Canadians loop in Interpol if Ramirez is indeed traveling internationally. If all goes smoothly, we net a big fish. Ethan repressed a tremor of nerves. He nodded. All right, let's set it up. Back in Seattle, Lauren was preparing to turn herself in to begin her brief incarceration as per the plea deal. Numbly, she packed a small bag at her dingy apartment, tears occasionally blurring her vision. She thought about sending Ethan another message, but realized it might not matter. He'd told her everything was over. She had to live with it. On her final day of freedom, she visited the quiet campus of the community college where she once taught, slipping past security to wander the deserted halls. Memories flooded her, the joy of guiding students, the little triumphs in each painting or sculpture. She paused at the locked door of her old classroom, pressing a hand to the window. I let all this slip away for a deceitful fling and false promises. A wave of self-loathing hit her. As she left, a heavy sadness pressed down. The next time she stepped onto any campus, it would be as someone starting from ground zero, wearing the scarlet letter of her felony. She whispered a silent apology to the emptiness. I'm sorry, Ethan. I was wrong. That night she surrendered to authorities, beginning a short but humiliating jail term. The cell door clanged shut, and Lauren Reeves Granger, former wife, teacher, dreamer, found herself drifting in the gray purgatory of her own making. Back in Vancouver, Ethan monitored his phone meticulously. Late that afternoon, Simone texted him. Mr. Granger, awaiting your decision. I can arrange a private meeting with interested parties. Discretion guaranteed. He responded with carefully crafted words, guided by Harding's suggestions. I've reconsidered my stance. Let's explore synergy, but I need to meet real decision-makers, not intermediaries. Simone's reply was swift. I'll see what I can do. Dinner tonight, 8 p.m., Mirabelle Restaurant, Harbor District. You won't be disappointed. Agent Harding nodded when Ethan showed him the screen. Good. We'll wire you again. Team on standby. This might be where they lead you to Ramirez or someone close to him. Ethan sighed. Let's hope I don't end up stuffed in a trunk. Song gave him a reassuring grin. We've got your back, Granger. That evening, a steady rain drummed on the city, the gleaming skyscrapers reflecting in wet streets. Ethan arrived at Mirabelle Restaurant dressed in a tailored suit and outward display of the wealthy CEO persona. Inside, the atmosphere was upscale. Candle-lit tables, soft jazz music, an air of exclusivity. A hostess guided Ethan to a private booth near the back. Waiting there in an elegant cocktail dress was Simone, sipping a glass of red wine. She greeted him with a gracious smile, almost purring, so pleased you decided to come. Ethan slid into the booth, scanning for potential dangers. He spotted an older man at a nearby table, eyes frequently darting their way. Possibly an Axis henchman. The FBI had agents disguised as patrons, scattered around the dining area. He took small comfort in that. Simone leaned forward conspiratorially. My principals are intrigued by your willingness to collaborate. They're prepared to meet you. But first, they want to ensure you're sincere about burying any past grudges. Ethan forced a slight smile, channeling the cunning persona he used in high-stakes negotiations. Let's just say I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. If Axis can protect me and my technology from further sabotage, I'm open. Simone's eyes gleamed. Excellent. There's a private suite in this hotel's top floor. We can head up after dinner. You'll meet a representative who can finalize the arrangement. Possibly you'll even get to see Ernesto Ramirez himself. Ethan's heart kicked up a notch. He nodded as if unfazed. Sounds promising. They chatted about innocuous topics for a moment, Simone dropping sly references to global expansions. She made a brief toast. To new alliances and profitable horizons. Glasses clinked. Ethan's mouth tasted of tension and wine. Where's the FBI? Are they hearing all this? He prayed so. After the meal, Simone guided Ethan through a private elevator to the hotel's penthouse. The corridor was silent, plush carpet absorbing every footstep. She used a keycard to unlock double doors leading into a lavish suite with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city lights. A single man stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. He turned as they entered. He was tall, late 50s, with graying hair slicked back, wearing a perfectly tailored midnight blue suit. His face exuded quiet power, a subtle, commanding presence. Simone inclined her head. "Mr. Granger, allow me to introduce Ernesto Ramirez." Ethan's pulse spiked. So this was the rumored Axis kingpin, the financier behind countless shell corporations. Ramirez smiled politely, extending a hand. "An honor, Mr. Granger. I've followed your recent trials. You've proven remarkably resourceful." Ethan shook his hand, every nerve on edge. "I do what I must, Mr. Ramirez." Ramirez gestured for them to sit on a plush sofa. Simone stood to the side, watchful. Two more men in suits lingered near the walls, likely armed. So this is a trap or a transaction? Ramirez launched into a smooth pitch. "Axis Combine invests in talent. We prefer partnerships to conflicts. While your encryption is valuable, you personally are of greater interest. A man who can weather betrayal, outsmart rivals, we want that in our circle." Ethan forced a measured nod. "I'm listening." Ramirez sipped from a crystal tumbler. "Let's cut to it. You can keep your brand, your technology. We'll inject capital, open global markets. In return, you grant us exclusive early access to every iteration of your encryption, plus a partial stake in SkyEdge. We ensure no sabotage befalls you again." Ethan's jaw tightened. The brazen demands were massive. Partial ownership, inside knowledge. He feigned consideration. "And if I refuse?" Ramirez's smile turned glacial. "We can't guarantee your future success or safety." It was the direct threat. Ethan's mind roiled. "I have to stall, get him to say more." "That's quite an ultimatum. Let me think about it. Perhaps if I see some documentation of your backing, or meet more of your partners, I'd feel secure." Simone's phone buzzed quietly. She checked it, then murmured something to Ramirez. He frowned, turning back to Ethan. "I'm told there's suspicious activity in the hotel, maybe law enforcement. Do you know anything about that?" Ethan's pulse hammered. The FBI must be making a move. He kept his face neutral. "Not that I'm aware of. This is a legitimate finance summit. Security is normal, right?" Ramirez studied him, suspicion flickering in his eyes. Then a new ring came from the suite phone. One of the suited men answered, face grim. "Sir, we have an emergency. Agents on the premises." He whispered more details that Ethan couldn't fully catch. Ramirez's expression darkened, his cool facade cracking. "Granger, I hope you haven't done anything unwise." Ethan's chest constricted. "They know! The FBI is moving now or got discovered." Simone backed away, eyes wide with alarm. The men near the walls tensed, hands likely drifting to weapons. Before Ramirez could bark another order, the suite's doors burst open, two men in suits stepping in. They raised badges, shouting, "FBI, stay where you are!" Instantly, Ramirez's goons drew guns. Shots rang out. Simone ducked with a shriek, diving behind furniture. Ethan dropped to the floor, covering his head as bullets thudded into walls and shattered glass. Another shot from the corridor brought down one guard. Ramirez, apparently calm under fire, dashed to a side door, cursing in Spanish as he went. Ethan scrambled to his feet, heart pounding, searching for cover. Agent Harding rushed in behind the initial pair, weapon raised. "Ethan, down!" he yelled. A final guard aimed at Harding, but an FBI agent's bullet took him out first. The suite erupted in chaos, furniture overturned, glass shards everywhere. Ramirez was nearly out of sight. Harding gestured. "Song, chase him!" Agent Song sprinted through the side door. Another FBI agent rushed to secure Simone, who was cowering behind an ottoman. Ethan, disoriented, forced himself upright. He glimpsed Ramirez fleeing down a private staircase that presumably led to the rooftop or another service corridor. Adrenaline surged. I can't let him escape. Without thinking, Ethan bolted after Song. Up 2 flights of narrow service stairs, Ethan emerged onto the hotel's rooftop. Cold air whipped his face. The city lights glistened below, a dizzying vantage. Ramirez was ahead, near a small helipad area shockingly. A sleek helicopter idled there, rotors spinning. He planned a quick escape. Song and a second agent had nearly caught him, but 2 additional armed men stepped out from behind the chopper, opening fire. Ethan ducked behind a vent. Song and the second agent returned fire, pinned down by the hail of bullets. Ramirez dashed to the helicopter, shouting instructions to the pilot. The engine whined louder, preparing for takeoff. They're going to vanish into the night. The entire FBI sting would be fruitless if Ramirez flew away. Ethan spotted a door to a supply closet near the helipad. He clutched the handle, peeking inside. A coil of rope, a fire extinguisher, some scattered tools. Useless for a direct fight. Over the radio on Song's belt, he heard frantic chatter. Backup was on the way, but might not arrive in time. Think, Ethan. He refused to let Axis slip through his fingers. The helicopter's tail rotor was close, spinning dangerously. Could he sabotage it? That was madness. But better madness than letting Ramirez escape scot-free. Steeling himself, Ethan sprinted along the perimeter, crouched behind mechanical units. The gunmen fixated on the agents, exchanging fire. One agent took a bullet to the leg, dropping with a cry. Song continued firing, returning shot for shot. Meanwhile, the helicopter pilot lifted off an inch, but wavered, maybe unsteady under the pressure. Ethan spotted a metal scaffolding ladder leading to a higher vantage. He clambered up quickly, ignoring the burn in his muscles. From that elevated angle, he saw the helicopter's tail rotor spinning just within reach if he leapt onto the backside. Insane. But if he jammed something into the rotor, the chopper might be disabled, or forced to land. Could also kill me. Another volley of gunfire snapped him back to the present. He had no choice. Clutching a short crowbar he found near a maintenance box, Ethan edged along the scaffolding. The helicopter now hovered a foot off the rooftop, Ramirez and a pilot inside, a side door still open. The Axis gunmen below pelted the FBI with lead. Another agent returned fire from behind an AC unit, but they were pinned. Gathering his courage, Ethan lunged from the scaffolding, hooking one arm around a strut near the tail of the helicopter. The rotor's downdraft buffeted him, threatening to fling him off. Gritting his teeth, he jammed the crowbar into the rotor assembly. Metal screeched, sparks flew, and the rotor abruptly jammed. The helicopter lurched violently. Inside, Ramirez shouted in alarm. The pilot cursed, struggling with the controls. Smoke billowed from the tail. The chopper lost lift, slammed onto the rooftop in a jarring impact that crumpled the landing gear. Ethan tumbled across the asphalt, pain jolting through him. At least it didn't blow up. The main rotor still spun wildly, but the tail rotor was done. The Axis gunmen whirled, seeing their escape plan ruined. Another volley of FBI gunfire erupted. With the helicopter down, Ramirez had nowhere to go. He stumbled out of the cockpit, staggering, trying to raise a pistol. Song popped up from cover and shouted, "Freeze! Drop it!" A shot rang out Song's bullet? Ramirez's? Hard to tell. Ramirez collapsed, a hand pressed to his side, blood staining his immaculate suit. He gasped, the gun clattering away. The pilot bailed, hands raised, as the remaining Axis gunmen realized they were outnumbered. One tried to keep shooting but was swiftly taken down by an agent's well-aimed shot. Another tossed his weapon, surrendering. A tense hush followed. The helicopter's engine sputtered, then died. Agents rushed in, securing the scene, shouting instructions. Sirens wailed from below, indicating local police and paramedics converging. Ethan lay on the rooftop, chest heaving, the crowbar still clutched in his scraped hands. Adrenaline roared in his ears. He felt bruised but not gravely injured. Agent Harding emerged from the stairwell, wide-eyed at the wrecked chopper. "Holy hell, Granger," he breathed. You just grounded Ramirez. You okay?" Ethan nodded shakily, adrenaline crashing, leaving him weak. "I'll live. What about Ramirez?" Harding approached Ramirez's sprawled form. The Axis kingpin hissed in pain, cursing in Spanish. The bullet had caught him in the abdomen. Blood pooled beneath him, but he was conscious. FBI medics hurried over, kneeling by him, applying pressure. Harding stooped down. "Ernesto Ramirez, you're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, attempted murder. The list goes on. Don't move." Ramirez glared at Ethan with venom in his gaze. You have no idea the forces behind me," he growled, coughing. "Axis is bigger than one man." Then he coughed again, wincing. "But you'll regret this, your loved ones, everything you cherish." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Go to hell. It's over." He prayed that was true. The paramedics loaded Ramirez onto a stretcher, an FBI agent handcuffing him. More agents secured the pilot and the last Axis henchman. The rooftop was awash in chaos, but the crucial fact was clear. Ernesto Ramirez, a key Axis figure, was in custody. As dawn broke over Vancouver, the hotel rooftop became the stage for a final clearing of wounded men, shattered metal, and exhausted agents. The operation, though messy, seemed successful. Ethan, battered and trembling, realized he had done it. He'd taken the fight directly to Axis and emerged victorious. Yet Ramirez's final words echoed in his mind. Axis is bigger than one man. Even if Ernesto faced prison, there might be others ready to pick up the mantle of sabotage and corruption. Still, for now, the immediate threat was neutralized. A wave of relief mingled with the throbbing in his bruised limbs. He closed his eyes, inhaling the crisp morning air. This victory cost him scars, physical and emotional. But it meant he could return to Seattle with a measure of safety, a sense that the cheating wife revenge had led him far beyond personal betrayal into the underbelly of global power struggles, and he had survived. 3 days after the helicopter takedown, Ethan Granger returned to Seattle. The Vancouver fiasco made global headlines. High-stakes arrest of international financier Ernesto Ramirez, with rumors swirling about a multi-country crackdown on Axis Combine. The FBI publicly thanked an unnamed corporate cooperator, though Ethan's identity was widely assumed. Pundits debated the future of Axis, the moral complexities of private espionage, and the line between corporate and criminal infiltration. Ethan had only one desire: to reclaim normalcy. He stepped off the private jet, shoulders tense, scanning the runway. Bailey was there, waiting near an SUV with anxious eyes. As soon as he approached, she threw her arms around him, hugging tight. "Oh my God," she breathed. "The news said there was a helicopter crash, gunfights. Are you okay?" He pressed her gently. "Just bruises and some aches. I'm alive, Bales." She pulled back, tears glimmering. "You're insane, you know that? First a warehouse shootout, now a rooftop helicopter sabotage." He let out a shaky laugh. "It's not a pattern I intend to continue, but yeah, it was intense." They climbed into the SUV, the driver heading toward the city. Bailey filled Ethan in on how local channels praised him as some tech mogul turned hero, while conspiracy forums claimed he was part of some staged drama. None of it mattered. He just wanted to breathe again, to see what remained of his life. At Sky Edge, employees greeted Ethan with thunderous applause as he walked through the main lobby. The news had circulated that Ernesto Ramirez was arrested, the Axis threat presumably crushed. People hailed Ethan's bravery. He nodded wearily, forcing a polite wave. Inside, he told the department heads to spin the story positively, but not to dwell on the drama. "We're a tech company, not a tabloid," he said, half exasperated. Diane visited his office that afternoon, exuding calm professionalism. "The DA in Seattle is thrilled with the Axis bust. They dropped heavier charges on some local conspirators, courtesy of the new evidence. Gavin Croft's testimony helps too, now that Ramirez is in custody." Ethan sank into his desk chair, exhaustion lining his features. "So it's basically done? No more major threats?" She shrugged, lips pursed. Axis could regroup, but with Ramirez behind bars, their global finances are in disarray. The FBI expects more arrests, so you should have a measure of peace now. A wave of relief, tinged with emptiness, washed over Ethan. "That's good." Diane studied him. "You can exhale, Ethan. You got the revenge on Gavin, ended Axis's immediate threat, restored your company's reputation. Are you satisfied?" He considered the question, mind flicking to Lauren's betrayal, the months of chaos. He realized satisfaction wasn't the right word. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I'm just tired. Later that evening, Bailey coaxed Ethan into leaving the office early for a quiet dinner. The driver took them not to a bustling restaurant, but to a small lakeside cabin about an hour outside Seattle. Ethan frowned at her in confusion. Bales, what's this? She smiled softly. A place to unplug. Diane and Troy helped me arrange it. We thought you needed, like, a mental retreat. No paparazzi, no corporate noise. The cabin was modest, perched by a serene lake shimmering under moonlight. Tall pines swayed gently in the breeze. Inside, the decor was rusticic with a stone fireplace. A caretaker had left fresh groceries and a note. Enjoy your stay. Ethan inhaled the pine-scented air, a tension he didn't realize he carried easing from his shoulders. Thank you, he whispered to Bailey. This might actually help. She gave him a quick hug. You deserve it. I'll head back to Seattle so you can have real solitude. Call if you need me. He nodded, moved by her thoughtfulness. As she drove off, leaving him alone with the quiet lapping of lake water, Ethan felt an unfamiliar sense of calm. No conspiracies tonight. No Axis. Just me and my thoughts. That night, Ethan built a small fire in the cabin's fireplace, the flames crackling warmly. He poured himself a single glass of bourbon, sat on an old leather armchair, and allowed the silence to envelop him. His mind roamed free. Gavin's betrayal, Lauren's affair, the humiliation of discovering those incriminating texts, the elaborate revenge scheme he orchestrated, the unstoppable escalation into a global conspiracy. It felt like a movie plot, yet it was his real life. He wondered if he'd lost something essential along the way. Was it better to have never known? He remembered the first day he'd met Lauren, how she captivated him with her artistic spark. They were so in love. Then came the silent wedge of his devotion to building Sky Edge, her frustrations, and ultimately, her betrayal. He took a deep breath, letting go of the old pain. She was in jail now, paying for her crimes. And he was free? Am I free from the heartbreak? He drained the bourbon, warmth spreading in his chest. Maybe this was the closure he needed. Nobody was controlling him anymore. Axis was crippled. Gavin was under guard. Lauren was out of the picture. Now what? Around 10 p.m., just as Ethan was drifting to a drowsy peace by the fireplace, a soft knock echoed at the cabin's door. He jolted, heart leaping. This is supposed to be a private getaway. Who? He moved cautiously to the window, peering out. Moonlight revealed a single figure in a hoodie, small-framed, possibly female. Fear flashed. Axis again? Some crazy journalist? He grabbed the poker from the fireplace as an improvised weapon, mind racing. Who is it? He called, forcing calm. A hesitant voice replied, It's me, Lauren. Ethan's pulse spiked. Lauren? She was supposed to be in jail. He set aside the poker, confusion and anger swirling. Slowly, he opened the door. She stood there, hair damp from the drizzle, eyes downcast. She looked frail, pale, freed from jail. What are you doing here? He demanded, shock fueling his tone. She lifted her gaze, tearful. I served part of my sentence. The judge granted me early release for good behavior and because of my cooperation. I found out from Bailey that you were here. I know I have no right, but I needed to see you. Can I come in? Ethan's mind spun. Part of him wanted to slam the door. Another part was curious, maybe even longing for final closure. He sighed, stepping aside. Fine, just for a minute. The cabin felt suddenly small as Lauren entered, dripping water onto the floor. She pulled back her hood, revealing short-cropped hair, likely cut for prison regulations. Her eyes shone with raw vulnerability. Ethan motioned for her to stand by the fire, offering a towel from a small bathroom closet. She murmured thanks, drying off. The silence was charged, thick with unsaid words. Finally, she looked up at him, tears threatening to spill. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I had to apologize face-to-face, not through texts or second-hand messages. Ethan's expression remained guarded, arms folded. You served your time? She nodded. 6 months behind bars, plus probation for a couple of years. Some might say that's too lenient, but it felt like a lifetime, enough to think about everything I did. He studied her, noticing how the once glamorous woman had been replaced by someone humbled, worn. "What do you want from me, Lauren?" She swallowed. "Nothing. I'm not here to ask for money or forgiveness. I'm here to tell you how sorry I am, that I destroyed what we had. And to thank you for not pushing for a harsher sentence. I know you could have." Ethan felt an unexpected twist in his chest, remembering how he hesitated to press civil charges. He shrugged. "You did that to yourself, not me." She nodded. "Yes, I did." Her voice trembled. "Look, I'm not naive. I know we can't go back. I just needed you to see that I'm trying to make amends, to be a better person now that I've hit rock bottom." Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to hurl accusations, recount the heartbreak, but the fury that once fueled him was oddly absent. All that remained was a dull ache. "I appreciate the sentiment, but as far as I'm concerned, we're done. We made that clear." Lauren's eyes glistened. "I know," she whispered, "but I'm here to move forward, not backward. Part of that is owning my mistakes. The other part is leaving you in peace." A tense quiet settled. Ethan gestured for her to sit near the fire. He poured her a cup of hot tea from a kettle he found in the cabinet. She sipped it gratefully, flinching at the memory of simpler domestic times. "You always hated the smell of chamomile," she said absently. He managed a faint smile. "I guess preferences change." They lapsed into silence again. Lauren stared at the flickering flames. "I read the news about your battles with Axis. I can't believe how far everything escalated. Part of me wonders if I lit the fuse that set you on that path." Ethan exhaled. "You introduced me to Gavin. That's the fuse, yes. But I won't blame you for Axis's entire conspiracy. They had their own agenda." She nodded, eyes sorrowful. "Still, I regret it. If I'd been honest about my unhappiness, if we'd had therapy or something, maybe none of this would have happened." Ethan's throat tightened, a swirl of if only haunting him. "We can't rewrite history. We can only accept it. I've done terrible things myself in pursuit of revenge or self-preservation. We're both changed." Lauren swallowed, tears slipping free. "And what kind of people are we now?" He looked away. "Survivors, I guess." They spoke for another hour, sharing regrets, acknowledging the finality of their relationship. Lauren talked of her plan to relocate to a different city, maybe teach art therapy classes for ex-inmates if she could get a job. She wanted a fresh start. Ethan mentioned focusing on philanthropic endeavors, shifting some of SkyEdge's profits to community programs, ironically inspired by the chaos that had consumed him. Eventually, the conversation ebbed. Lauren stood, retrieving her damp hoodie. The storm outside continued, but had lessened. She offered a shaky smile. "Thank you for letting me in. I'm sorry to disrupt your peace." Ethan walked her to the door. "I guess it's good we said this, so we can both move on." She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I hope you find happiness, Ethan. You deserve it, after everything." He inclined his head. "You too. Take care." She stepped into the drizzle, shutting the door gently behind her. Through the window, Ethan watched her vanish into the dark. A strange sense of calm settled over him like a final weight had lifted. We truly are finished. Part of him felt lighter, even if the scar remained. Still keyed up, Ethan grabbed a second glass of bourbon, sipped it by the fire. The hush of the cabin wrapped around him. Emotions churned. Relief at Lauren's apology, sadness for what they lost, acceptance that the path ahead was uncharted. This is the closure I wanted or needed, he thought. I can't dwell on the past anymore. His phone buzzed a text from Bailey. "You good? Heard from Troy that you're safe. Just checking." He typed back, "I'm fine. Surprise visitor tonight, but all's okay. Heading to bed soon." He set the phone aside, letting the exhaustion seep in. Tomorrow, he'd return to daily life SkyEdge expansions, finishing up the Axis legal wrangling with the FBI. But at least now the personal heartbreak felt resolved. In the quiet glow of embers, Ethan Granger closed his eyes. For the first time in months, he felt no searing rage at betrayal, no frantic desperation to expose conspiracies. He was merely a man who survived heartbreak and battled monsters in the dark, now gazing at the dim horizon of a calmer future. The final question lingered. Would he find a new sense of purpose, or would the echoes of revenge forever haunt him? Time alone would tell. A week passed, and Ethan left the lakeside cabin with a clearer mind. The storm clouds of betrayal and conspiracies had receded, leaving him cautious but hopeful. He resumed daily operations at Sky Edge, this time delegating more duties to Bailey and other executives. He no longer felt the relentless drive to micromanage everything. If the Axis ordeal taught him anything, it was that life could pivot in an instant. Better not to spend it all buried in spreadsheets. He also worked closely with the FBI to wrap up statements against Axis members, particularly Ernesto Ramirez. Gavin Croft, under maximum security, continued cooperating from his hospital bed, testifying via video depositions. The public gradually lost interest in the day-to-day specifics, satisfied that a major criminal network was disarmed. Eventually, the trial for Ernesto Ramirez began in a federal courtroom in Seattle. Ethan was summoned as a key witness, though the defense tried to block his testimony, claiming entrapment. The judge allowed it. So on a cool, overcast morning, Ethan took the stand. He recounted the intimidation, the infiltration attempts, the Vancouver rooftop confrontation. Cameras outside the courthouse captured glimpses of him entering, stoic but poised. Ramirez, seated at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, glowered at Ethan with burning hatred. The once dapper financier was pale, thinner his bullet wound had healed, but his aura of power was gone. He occasionally muttered to his lawyer, who tried to poke holes in Ethan's story. But the FBI's avalanche of evidence proved overwhelming. Gavin's depositions, along with seized bank records, hammered nails into the coffin of Ramirez's empire. After 2 days of testimony, the defense crumbled. Ramirez faced a litany of charges that all but guaranteed a lengthy prison term. The gavel struck finality. Guilty. The hallway erupted in murmurs of relief from investigators, victims, and onlookers. Ethan stepped out, exhaling. It's truly over. One person was conspicuously absent from the trial. Lauren. She'd already served her short sentence, gone through probation orientation, and vanished from Seattle's mainstream circles. Some rumored she took a bus to Oregon or Idaho, seeking anonymity. Ethan felt a faint pang, but recognized that was best for both of them. They had parted in the cabin, found closure. He hoped she found the means to rebuild her life. He had no illusions about rekindling anything. We had our final goodbye. Meanwhile, Gavin Croft also concluded his hospital stay, transitioning to a secure detention facility. Through official channels, he expressed a twisted sense of gratitude to Ethan. "Thanks for not letting them kill me. I guess I owe you." Ethan snorted when he read that line. He owed Gavin nothing, but ironically, their shared ordeal had toppled Axis. Perhaps that was the final karmic twist. With the Axis threat gone, Ethan found himself rethinking Sky Edge's purpose. He assembled the leadership team, including Bailey, Diane, and other department heads, to discuss a strategic pivot. Instead of just selling encryption to the highest bidder, they'd expand philanthropic outreach, offering discounted or free cybersecurity solutions to nonprofits, schools, and small businesses. During the meeting, some executives balked. "That might reduce our profit margins," one said. "Investors may question it." Ethan responded with firm resolve. "I've confronted enough greed and corruption to last a lifetime. We can afford to help those who can't protect themselves. If that means trimming some margins, so be it." Bailey beamed with pride, chiming in, "It'll also boost our public image. We'll still serve corporate clients at premium rates, but we can show the world that advanced security isn't just for the elite." The room eventually aligned with Ethan's vision. This was no longer just personal redemption. It was a moral stance, shaped by scars from the Axis War and the betrayal that triggered it all. Troy, who'd been Ethan's ally since discovering Lauren's affair, prepared to move on. The man had grown tired of high-stakes investigations, yearning for simpler work. One evening, Ethan treated Troy to a private dinner at an upscale steakhouse. They clinked glasses of whiskey. Troy raised an eyebrow. "Remember the day you first asked me to trail Lauren? We had no idea how big the rabbit hole went." Ethan sighed, swirling his drink. "Yeah. If you'd told me back then that it would end with me sabotage a helicopter rotor on a rooftop, I'd have thought you were insane." Troy chuckled. "You adapted. That's your superpower, Ethan. You adapt and overcome. They toasted to the improbable journey. Troy planned to open a small security consultancy, far from the storms of Axis-like conspiracies. Ethan offered financial backing as thanks. Troy accepted modestly, promising to stay in touch as a friend, not just a hired hand. The next day, Agents Harding and Morales visited Ethan's office one final time, giving him an official FBI certificate of appreciation. It felt oddly ceremonial. Harding said, "We're grateful for your cooperation. If you ever consider a second career, you've got the nerves for undercover work." Ethan mustered a wry grin. "Thanks, but I think one conspiracy infiltration is enough for a lifetime." In the ensuing months, demand soared for Ethan to give keynote speeches about corporate integrity, cybersecurity, and personal resilience. Conferences wanted him to share the incredible saga of discovering his wife's affair, unmasking corporate espionage, and helping dismantle an international crime syndicate. He found the prospect both flattering and exhausting. Am I a cautionary tale or a folk hero? One such invitation came from a prestigious tech ethics symposium in Washington, D.C. The organizer wrote passionately about how Ethan's story illustrated the moral lines in business. Bailey encouraged him to accept, saying it would further legitimize SkyEdge's philanthropic pivot. He eventually agreed. If sharing his hard-won lessons could help others avoid those pitfalls, maybe it was worth reliving the pain in public. But he vowed never to sensationalize the personal betrayal. That remained a private scar. On a crisp autumn morning, as Ethan strolled out of SkyEdge's downtown Seattle building, he spotted a figure leaning against a parked car. His stomach clenched, recognizing the posture. Simone, the Axis emissary from Vancouver. She wore a stylish coat, hair pinned back, gazing at him with a cryptic smile. His security detail tensed, stepping forward. Ethan waved them back, curious. Simone approached slowly, palms open to show no threat. "Mr. Granger," she said softly. "I see you're well." He eyed her warily. "You have guts showing up here. The FBI has your name on file." She shrugged lightly. "They can't pin me on anything serious. I've been, let's say, operating on a need-to-know basis. But I wanted to speak to you. Off the record." Ethan frowned, checking his watch. "Go on." She sighed, glancing around. "Axis is wounded. Ernesto Ramirez was a key pillar, but others remain. Some want revenge against you. Others prefer to lie low. I came to warn you that complacency might be dangerous." Ethan felt a flash of anger. Is that a threat or a courtesy? Both, perhaps. You destroyed part of Axis, but it's not entirely gone. Her expression held a sliver of genuine regret. "I once believed in their vision funding bold ventures, reshaping markets. But after Vancouver, I see the darkness runs too deep. I'm leaving them, forging my own path. If you're wise, you'll keep your guard up. Others might not be so forgiving." He studied her face, searching for deception. "Why warn me?" She exhaled. "Because I owe you some measure of respect for outsmarting us, and I suspect you'll do some good with your life. I just can't stand by while others plot in the shadows." A swirl of conflicting emotions. Simone was the one who tried to rope him into Axis. Now she claimed to desert them. Could be a ruse. But the sincerity in her eyes seemed real. "Thanks for the heads-up," he said tersely. "Don't expect me to trust you." She gave a sad smile. "I don't. Farewell, Ethan Granger." She turned, disappearing into a waiting car, leaving Ethan unsettled. Axis not gone, just crippled. The possibility of future battles lurked, but for now he had peace. Months rolled on. Ethan's philanthropic direction blossomed. SkyEdge launched an initiative bringing cutting-edge encryption to underfunded hospitals and schools. The press lauded it as a moral renaissance for big tech. Ethan felt a calm pride in seeing the results, like he'd found a new purpose beyond personal gain. One evening, Bailey convinced him to attend a local charity art gala, raising funds for rehabilitating youth offenders via art programs. He initially resisted, the memory of Lauren's artistic pursuits still stingy, but eventually he relented. The gala took place in a renovated warehouse turned gallery. Paintings lined the exposed brick walls, music thrummed gently. Ethan mingled politely, sipping a non-alcoholic beverage. Suddenly, he paused before a large canvas depicting a swirling abstract shape, bold, clashing colors with a surprising sense of hope amid chaos. The placard read, "Painted by a youth in a correctional facility." Something about it resonated with him. The idea of forging light from darkness. A woman approached, greeting him with a warm smile. "Hello, you must be Ethan Granger." "I'm Rachel, the program director. I heard you donated to our cause." Ethan nodded politely. "Happy to support. The paintings are quite powerful." She nodded. "These kids come from rough backgrounds, but art gives them a second chance. We believe in redemption." He found himself exchanging a lengthy conversation with her about redemption, healing, the ways betrayal can lead to growth. He didn't mention Lauren specifically, but Rachel picked up on his subdued heartbreak. She was gracious, empathetic, and passionate about her mission. By evening's end, he realized he'd spent hours at the event, enthralled by the synergy between art and second chances. A quiet spark of interest flickered in his chest. Rachel's unwavering positivity was refreshing after months of tension. They exchanged contact info, promising to connect about potential future collaborations with Sky Edge's philanthropic arm. Walking out of the gallery that night, Ethan gazed at the city lights, remembering the labyrinth of betrayal, revenge, and conspiracies that once weighed him down. "I'm still here," he thought, with scars, but also with a chance to move forward. He had no illusions that life would be free of challenges. Axis might lurk in the shadows, and the pain of betrayal still echoed. But he was forging a new path, shaped by lessons learned, unafraid of the darkness anymore. Months later, in a heartfelt interview on a major news outlet, Ethan Granger spoke not of the sensational drama, but of the resilience needed to overcome betrayal in both business and personal realms. He concluded with a message that caught the public by surprise. "Sometimes the worst pain drives us to discover hidden strengths. Betrayal can break you, or it can forge you into someone stronger. I chose the latter, and I believe no matter how dark it gets, there's always a path to redemption, if you dare to walk it." As the camera panned away, the audience glimpsed a man who had journeyed from unsuspecting husband to avenger, from victim to victor, from cynic to philanthropist. A man who navigated a labyrinth of lies, both personal and global, and emerged with a battered but unbowed spirit. The old Ethan died the moment he discovered that first incriminating text on Lauren's phone. The new Ethan lived, shaped by the crucible of heartbreak and the triumph over Axis. Hey, listeners of Temptress Cheating Tales, if you enjoy